Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of BRAP. It is Wednesday, February the 21st, 2024. First, I want to apologize for the echo there, some technical difficulties. But anyhow, welcome everyone to the show. Appreciate the support as always. Do me a quick favor. I'm going to drop a link here in the live chat. If you could do me a solid, retweet the link, post it on your favorite social media platform, let everyone know that we're live. And we do have a special returning guest. Somebody I've known, I just realized this. I've known this individual for quite a few years now, which is crazy because time flies. And I was saying to him, and actually the reason why we're late is because we were kind of catching up, more or less.
Yeah.
And
a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we had stuff to talk about. My heel turn in professional wrestling, which we won't get into. but I want to introduce this individual. He is the co-host of the Iron Lords podcast, which goes live every Sunday. He's also the co-host of Defining Duke, and he's also a co-host of the Last Word Destiny podcast. I want to welcome back to BRAP, Lord Cognito. Cog, I said this to you before we started the show, that I had reached out to you 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, to get you back on BRAP. But hey, better late than never, sir. Happy to have you back. How are you this evening?
First of all, I appreciate your patience. I'm in the realm of the Basement Radio Arcade. Used to frequent here very often.
Yeah, back in the days, yeah.
Back in the day, yeah, man. So salute, for your patience. And obviously my schedule's been absolutely crazy. I think it was right around the time I just started Meta, I think is when that happened. And then from there, I kind of put myself on mini podcast timeout because I just kind of wanted to feel my way out, as corporate cog for a little bit. But now that I've, moved on and now we got other things going on, I'm slowly opening up. And today's been crazy, but bro, it's been good to talk to you. We talked a lot of things behind the scenes. Also, your heel turn.
Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes a heel turn, is required. I think.
You're Hollywood Hogan. This is where we at right now.
I'm Hollywood Hogan. Oh, hey, I may don the red and yellow.
Listen, they just want to see the red and yellow sometimes. That's all. Listen, man. It's Black History Month. We trying to promote peace, brother. Non-violence. I'm on my Martin Luther King. I'm gonna work with you. We gonna get this down. We're gonna be about non-violence. I had a dream, and BRAP was talking to everybody.
Look,
that's what I'm gonna try to shoot for. I look at the best version of you. That's how I remember you.
Hey, look. I'm like I said this to you earlier before we went live. I become like the old man now because I've been on Twitter for gaming Twitter since 2013. So 11 years. It's funny.
Wow.
I was talking to Tim Dog the other day, and I was in a Spaces with him. I'm like, Jesus, like Tim, I've known you for. Tim was one of the first people that I connected with. Like literally one of the first people, and I was just like, damn, Tim, like we've known each other for a long time, and same with you, Cog. Like I've known you for years.
Yeah. For years, bro. And then I'm still sad about we never. What was it? Right before it was right at E3, and then the pandemic happened. So what was that? 2020 that we got canceled.
That was 2020. We were supposed to go to E3.
Bro, hotels booked.
Yes,
flights
all of booked.
Us. Everything booked, and we just like, nah, this can't be real, right? Is this really happening, or is this getting canceled? And it just it broke us, man. And I do remember that was going to be our first time really linking. You know what I'm saying? In person. I mean, we've known each other for a while. We talked always before that, podcasts before that. But yeah, it really put things in perspective how things change. But to your point with Tim and everybody, yeah, like 2015 was one of the first when I got off at to E3 for Xbox Fan Fest, and he was one of the first people that introduced. He had like a Project Natal shirt. I'm like, I know what that means.
Remember Project? Remember that?
Yeah, with Milo and you know what I'm saying, the little boy and Peter Molyneux out here. He had the most advanced AI in his mind.
Snake oil salesman is what Peter Molyneux was.
He's a very clever individual. He's very clever.
No, I love the Fable games though. Those were we were talking about Xbox before we went live, and we were saying like some people. I said to you like people always say, "Oh, you're a PlayStation fan, BRAP." I'm like, actually, I primarily game on PC.
Yeah.
But my criticism of Xbox comes from my love of Xbox 20 something years ago. Remember the Jay Allards? I said this: Jay Allards, the Ed Freeze, the Robbie Box. I mean, you guys had one of the goats on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Peter Moore.
Oh, Peter. Oh my God.
Peter was
yeah.
Man.
Peter is special because what I like sometimes is when people are no longer in the industry and you get kind of more of an unfiltered interview and also more perspective. Now they get a chance to look back, right? And he says some very poignant things to me, especially during the Sega days and the perception of Sega during the tail end of Dreamcast, and I believe they were doing like case studies, and he basically was saying how, like, you know, I think EA at the time was, the analogy was like they were as the good-looking, arrogant quarterback gets the girl, you know, that kind of thing. And I forgot what the description for the other platforms, but when they got to Sega, when they were doing these focus groups testings, he basically was saying that they were like, they're like your grandfather who's a little senile, who thinks he's cool, but he's
remember that. Yeah,
I was like, yo, and to sit there and then bring that information back to Suzuki and Naka and those guys at, you know, the mothership in Japan, and to see how out of touch they were, and that they could not believe that the community felt that way, and it became a very aggressive, you know, pushback, and Peter didn't back down, you know, obviously representing the American side of things. That was interesting, you know, the 360, the zeitgeist that created. And man, he's got stories for days, but wonderful journey. And just to see him come from someone completely out of the games industry into you know, the industry was really dope. And he was a man of his word. He came back for the second
Reebok.
Yeah, Reebok. Yeah, man. And then think about this. You own your own foot, because that would be like you coming back and now you're the owner of your damn Commanders. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't. Well, actually, I would say, you know, Dan Snyder era, I would say I don't want that team. But now that we have new ownership, I have some hope.
Cool. Yeah,
maybe the Commanders will turn things around, but we'll see.
I feel you.
I don't know, but no, but the Peter Moore thing was great. But again, that's where my that criticism at times comes from. It's you know, for those who don't know, I was an Xbox Live beta tester.
OG.
Yeah, I just remember. I mean, you know, I remember those days, and they were so great. And like, I just, it's not to say I've actually accepted. And it's funny. I actually want to welcome Game Logic real quick. What's going on, Logic?
What's going on?
Much fellas, how y'all?
Pretty good, man.
So, I think Logic and Quagnito. Is this the first time you guys have met?
Yes, it's my first time interacting with Logic. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Salute.
So, I just Logic and I were talking about this too. Like, we have to accept, maybe as gamers, that the studios that we once beloved aren't the same studios anymore. But I think you said BioWare, Game Logic, maybe one example. But I've accepted that with Xbox now.
Yeah,
they're just not the same Xbox. I know Phil's a holdover from 20 years ago, but it's not the same. It just isn't the same anymore.
Yeah, times have changed, you know. Adaptation, the way the industry shifts. But I hear you, you know, because I was also there for those early days. I was an alpha tester for Xbox Live. You remember the excitement, you know, hard drive in the box, Ethernet in the box, and it was just kind of uncharted territory. So they were kind of visionaries in that space, and I did feel that's where the industry was going to go. So that's why the OG Xbox, even though it wasn't successful, you know, it meant a lot to me, because I felt like from a tech perspective, me being a techie, I'm like, okay, this is where it's going to go. And just to see where things ended up is kind of cool, interesting to kind of track.
Yeah.
Wow.
Go ahead, Logic.
So I wrote all this up in May of 2023.
What's that?
Nice.
That the thing I sent you that you reposted. I'm reading back through it now, and I'm like, I literally wrote almost all the stuff that's unfolding now back in May.
So Cog, you watch professional wrestling, right?
Been a while, but yeah, I used to back in the day consistently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember Batista?
Oh yes, I
remember his intro.
Yeah. I remember now. It's been a minute.
If you watch the Batista intro, that's Logic, by the way. So
okay.
Like all jokes is like it's funny. Like Logic and I have this running joke. We call him the architect from the Matrix. And so Logic, I didn't realize that what you sent me was what you wrote back in May 2023, and all this is coming to fruition now.
Yeah.
And Logic, I've said this before. You're like batting 1,000 almost with a lot of your predictions.
Yeah,
Which is-
yeah.
Don't be modest.
You know what I mean? You like,
Yeah.
it's, what's right is right.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean that's it's spot on. But Logic has really done. We talked before we went on air, Cognito. Like Logic's been one of those individuals who's brought that nuance, like I mentioned, to the conversation of gaming. Of course, some people accuse him of making things up, even though he clearly states that it's a hypothesis.
Right.
But no, Logic, that's actually I didn't realize that was from May 2023. That's interesting how everything's kind of happened that way as you discussed back then months ago.
Yeah.
So, real quick, I do want to grab the super chat here from Shevanshu Prasad. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. With the $10 super chat, it says Xbox has a narrative that exclusives are bad. They focus on Sony, yet no one mentions Nintendo exclusives, both first and third party. They escape criticism from Xbox Echo Chamber, Big Cog, and Maddie Fan. By the way, thank you for that, Prasad. We'll talk about the Xbox stuff here later on, but we do have some gaming news. Look, as many of you know, if you've been watching BRAP for a long time, I love the Souls games. And we saw Elden Ring today, the Elden Ring DLC, and I can't wait.
I know you're going in.
I cannot wait. Like, I know there's been other like Souls-like games that have come out, Lies of P, which everyone talks about. Like, I know Erica's a big fan. She's a big Souls fan. Mm-hmm. She's been telling me, Brap, you're a Souls fan. You love Bloodborne. You need to play this game. I haven't played it yet. I think it's on Game Pass still, right? Is it still on Game Pass?
Yeah. Yep, still on Game Pass. Maddie's a big fan of it too.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah, so I need to, at some point, I need to play that. The problem is I'm so backlogged. That's the issue. Yeah. I mean, that stems from, spending about 400 hours in a game called Baldur's Gate 3. Oh, yeah, Cog. I have a Baldur's Gate 3 problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Running joke with Game Logic was like, when are you going to stop playing that game? And I actually finally did stop playing it. I mean, I've started playing Helldivers 2, which we'll talk about here in a second as well, when I can get in the servers. But, oh, yeah, that drives me nuts. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. Been playing a lot. Persona 3 Reload. I've been playing that. Like, I love Persona 5, Persona 4 Golden. Persona 3 is just great. It's a great remake. It's actually, I got it through Game Pass, so it's there right now. I would encourage anyone, if you're in Game Pass right now,
give
it a shot. Give it a shot. Like, it's the one thing I'll say is the one thing Xbox has done pretty well for recently, I think, is getting some of these JRPGs onto the platform now.
Yes,
because they weren't there.
No, I agree. They've really improved in that regard. Trying to get things, some of the bigger games that missed the platform historically. So I think that's good. I love the push to continue to do that when they go over there in Japan and when we see TGS and things of that nature. You start to see more things kind of come over, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Shin Megami Tensei Vengeance was announced today. That's also coming to Xbox. That's an Atlas game. They seemingly have a good relationship with Atlas, because Metaphor is also another game that I think was revealed at the last Xbox event, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe one before that. But that's actually Atlas's new game that's coming out. So yeah, they're making inroads there. And again, that's why I tell people, when these games come, play them, because you got to support it. Like, if you want I don't want to hear you complain that they get shafted, don't get the JRPGs. Play the games, and that way, the developers will support, bringing them to Game Pass. But yeah, Elden Ring. I mean, I get it. It's going to be something that I'm going to be playing day one. I'm excited for it. I can't wait. It was nice to see some of those, what I call epic boss battles in those Souls games. Those big, intimidating bosses. It's just I can't wait. I can't wait. Like, I honestly think 2024 I think is going to be I think a great year. We talk about 2023, but this year 2024 I think has started out pretty well. Like, there's stuff that I'm interested in, and I know we got what would say January we got the new Assassin's Creed. And I know, Logic, you played that. Cog, did you play the new Assassin's Creed?
I'm trying to remember. This is the one where they kind of went back to the roots again. That one,
more the Metroidvania type one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. but yeah, there's just a lot of. I mean, so many games coming out, and so we see that, and then we get the announcement for Shin Megami Tensei, which is coming out. I forget when that's coming out, but yeah, just a lot of stuff that's coming out that I'm like, yeah, I would play this. But so Elden Ring again. Just watching the Elden Ring, I got excited. It's been 2 years, I think, since Elden Ring came out.
Yeah, it's been a minute. They take their time with that one. They definitely take their time with that one. Obviously the anticipation was high. I am not the Souls guy like that, but I respect what that has done for the culture. I respect how that's moved the needle. And it was more than a zeitgeist moment to see them kind of do that game in that space. And when I saw the trailer, it looked amazing. The skybox looks beautiful. Yeah. I was like, yep. They should have how like they got the engagement quotes that a lot of these companies use where it's like, 500 demon slash. They should have like how many controllers were thrown when you lost to a boss.
Yeah, exactly.
500 joysticks flung, because that's me. It's like I'm too old for those joysticks now, so it's like for me, like I don't want to be angry. That's the only reason why I don't play those games. But nah, salute the Elden Ring, man. Like that, I've just as a person who doesn't play that genre game, I recognize its greatness. I understand completely the whole bit, and I seen people just completely lose themselves and immerse themselves into it, where it becomes even talking points on social media. The way it was, it was great, man. It was really cool, and shout out to From. They really they hit that one out the park for sure.
Yeah, I never thought I'd see a Souls game have the kind of zeitgeist that Elden Ring had. Like I remember like when they first showed us the trailer, and it was like, okay, so the protagonist is on a horse. I'm like, I don't know if that's gonna work. It's kind of like it's kind of like open world, which is kind of new for Souls games. But just something about this game. I mean, it just came out, and it just so gangbusters. It became so popular. We praise Miyazaki-san, who's we call him the from gods. But it was just such an amazing game at the time, and I probably put well over 200 hours in the game. I think I did like 2 playthroughs. I beat it 3 times.
Oh, nice. Oh, you went in.
Oh yeah, I went in, and then I was running co-op with people because you also run co-op. You could summon people. I just need I need to do with the DLC. I need to refamiliarize myself with the story, the lore, because I've completely forgot everything. I've completely forgot everything. But it was just one of those games. Now, amongst Souls fans, it's not. There's some criticism there. If I think about the boss battles, I wouldn't say that these are the I don't want to say easy, but some of the less challenging bosses that I played in Souls games. Except there's that one boss. I can't remember her name. She's an optional boss, and she might be one of the hardest Souls bosses I've ever played. Melania is her name.
Nice.
I think it's Melania. And she's just nasty. Thick. Yeah, like it's just Melania is the boss. I just came across her image here. Yeah, she would do like a jumping rot bomb and had like this like katana that would do bleed damage. I mean, it was just
crazy.
It was crazy. Yeah. But yeah, again, like I said, this is going to be something that I'm going to spend hundreds of hours in probably, and I'm just overly excited for this game. But what about you, Logic? You have to refresh my memory, Logic. Do you don't play the Souls games, or have you played the Souls games?
Nope.
Okay. Any interest in maybe diving into Elden Ring? Nope. Okay.
Nope.
You on that energy? I'm on.
All right. So I'm the only one on the panel here that's getting the Souls game, and I want to say I don't think Slobo is a Souls fan per se, but I believe
he definitely plays them though.
He does play them, but I don't think he's been like I don't think historically speaking he's been like a big fan. But you're right. I think Elden Ring may have been his first one, and then he went to maybe Sekiro.
Yeah, because I thought he got you into them.
No. I was into them way before that. Yeah.
Are you sure, man? Oh.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh man, okay, you don't pass the smell test? Where we going? What's going on out here? Damn.
no, sir. No. I was definitely pro Souls before slow mo. I don't think slow mo's been a big fan. Yeah, I think he's always complained that the combat's wonky and that stuff like that. And I can get that. I mean, there's some times where you dodge and you're like, I dodged it and somehow the boss killed me, and that's where you like rage. Or you get so close to beating a boss after like the 20th attempt, and you get him down to like one hit, and then like you dodge and you swear you dodge, and they somehow hit you. You're like, oh.
That's why I don't need that in my life. I'll be. Bro, I respect it. There was a time when I was younger, for sure. But like now, that level of stress, I see it. I'm like, man, these bosses and the patterns, the change ups, and those games tend to be more of the kind of like lunkier, slower rolling kind of combat. And I get it. I get a little bit too aggroed, a little too fast. And I just don't want to be in that space. When I come home to play a game after a long day, like I just want to be in a nice chill zone. I don't want to be angry, and those games put me in a bad place.
Hey, I have literally cursed out bosses after beating them. like got up out of my chair, was like, yeah, F you, take that. And like,
like we beat him, like, yeah, like it gets your blood pressure rising. Man. No, I feel it. I
remember one time my wife's like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" I'm like, "You don't understand. Like, it took me like 20 tries to beat this boss, and I finally beat him." It to me, it's like an art form. It's like a dance. I know that doesn't make sense, but the parrying, like Sekiro, is probably, to me, that was like a dance, like just the parrying and the timing. With Sekiro, you couldn't really like level up. Like I remember like when I played Bloodborne, I just farmed resources, just kind of made my character a little OP. Mm-hmm. You couldn't do that with Sekiro.
Yeah.
You could update like your life gauge and some other things, but like there wasn't like boosting up your damage or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
you're right.
And Sekiro was one of their best games. But this also, watching Elden Ring today, and I saw what's his face? I'm forgetting his name now. I saw Mr. Badbit.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, where's Bloodborne? Where's that?
Yeah, he's going through it. He still got the counter. He still got the timer.
Yeah.
How many more days it's been since the Bloodborne?
Yeah.
I feel for him.
Yeah.
Hopefully they do it.
Yeah. And and that's, Bloodborne's been one of those games there was a rumor for some time that there was a remake of sorts, and we just haven't heard anything. And so, who knows if that's true, but the one thing I love about the Souls, I just love the energy from the Souls community. You saw a lot of people excited today. Mm-hmm. You saw Gene Park. Gene was talking about it.
Yes.
Despite the Nintendo Direct, which I by the way, I like today's Nintendo Direct, which we'll talk about in a second.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that you could just see the excitement. People kind of put like whatever they were doing down to watch this trailer. They're like, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And so
that's the part's cool.
Yeah. I just love the energy around the Souls community, and one of the things I found too is that a lot of Souls players are very, at least the ones that I've interacted with, are helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And engage like helping you with like
like the encounters and
farming,
like
co-oping stuff. It's just So, but
yeah, I think you guys are really really supportive of each other. I just want to know why amongst the different fandoms that Souls players are the most toxic.
Souls fans are not the most toxic. That would be Call of Duty fans, because they curse you out. They curse you out in the lobbies, and
them lobbies was real.
And throw like racial slurs out there, or they're using mics that sound like they're from like 20 years ago.
That's true. They're still on the little PlayStation 3 earbud mic.
Yeah,
Hey, they're using the Xbox Live beta tester mic. Do you remember those?
Oh, you talk about the joint that lobbed into your earlobe.
Yeah.
That had with the rubber little circular piece. I know exactly what you're talking about. Tap button push, for mute and all that. Oh man.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Logic. Explain to me why those mics are still around. Like it's like I'm like, what are you guys using? All you hear is like static in the background, dogs barking. I'm like, I just can't.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Taking it back.
I don't get it either. But all right. So
did you guys have the little the Xbox 360, the Halo headset? Like the little, it was like a little comm leak thing that like went just on your ear.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I do remember. I never had that though. I never had that.
That's fire.
Yeah, someone said that free PS3 mic.
Yeah, it used to be so horrible. That was you and I were talking about that earlier today. That was when like there used to be like a really huge divide between the online experience on Xbox versus PlayStation.
Agreed.
And I used to go online on PlayStation, man. It just used to be horrible. Like my eyes would be watering. Like I don't understand how you guys put up with this.
Yeah. And party chat and the discrepancy there. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Cog, do you play Call of Duty?
You know what's funny? I just started playing the new one, the latest one, the one that came back where a lot of people didn't get too many favorable reviews on the campaign. But I said, let me give it a shot. I actually enjoyed it, but now here's my perspective though. I haven't played a Call of Duty since like Black Ops 3. Like, so I've been out the game. So I just wanted to see like what was a lot of controversy, like the campaign would either reuse assets, and people said it was really terrible. Bro, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm kind of enjoying this.
I think I came back with Modern Warfare. So I've been back since. So I dropped off at Modern Warfare 2, OG Modern Warfare 2.
OG, so we're about the same pocket,
yeah. Because that to me, and BRAP has heard this hypothesis from me before. That to me was the great cataclysm of online gaming in the console space, especially. That was the year that, because they instantiated persistent stats and people started seeing their KD, that's when things got really toxic. When it all became about people bragging about their stats and bragging about their unlocks and bragging about prestige. That's when it became horrible. And I was like, no, I'm out.
Yep.
And I dropped Call of Duty. And that was also the point where I was like, because back on 360, you used to I met a lot of people, like just going into lobbies, hanging out. I mean, the Project Gotham Racing lobbies was kind of like where I grew up, right? Yeah, it was so dope. Mm-hmm. But then, so I dropped off then, and I stayed off Call of Duty until the Modern Warfare reboot. And so I've been back since Modern Warfare, Black Ops Cold War, Modern Warfare 2, and now Modern Warfare 3. And I'll be quite honest, so over the past 4 years, I feel like the multiplayer is the best it's been. And what I've been asking for, and I also play Call of Duty Mobile, what I've been asking for, Call of Duty Mobile, I don't know how they did it, but Tencent, however they did it, for whatever reason they did it, for the longest time, they have had, what in my mind is a really great map rotation where they literally have the same maps that you see in the desktop version of Call of Duty, but they don't drop them. So this whole time, there's been Call of Duty Mobile maps, Modern Warfare maps, Black Ops maps, right? And often I'll see a map in Call of Duty Mobile and then see it pop up on the desktop client. But the map rotation on the desktop client is always just very constrained. Mm-hmm. But this year, like I've been playing since season 2 of Modern Warfare 3, and I've gone on and I see Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War maps. Ooh. And I'm like, whoa, Piccadilly, right? Mm-hmm. So they're bringing all these great maps, and I'm like, this is the way it should be. The way it should be is that when you guys come up with a great map, and because now there's this feeling of I guess I'll call it recent nostalgia, right? I'm playing it, I'm playing on the new maps, and that's great. But then it's kind of like being in the club, right? And you're bopping to all the modern tunes, but then your old jam comes on. Woo! Right? I mean, that's the kind of feeling it gives. So it's really nice. It's a really good map rotation right now, I think.
Absolutely, that's dope. Yeah, I've been loving it, man. I've been having a good time.
No one's enjoying mumble rap. I just want to throw that out there.
Old school. I feel you.
I don't want to hear songs about farts. Sorry, go
we
ahead.
become what we hated back in the day. They used to say that about our job.
Oh, yes, they did.
They was hating that hip hop ain't gonna go nowhere.
Yeah. That's not music.
That's not music. They just sampling and taking stuff up, bro. I used to hear it.
Oh, man. I've become the old person now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But, yeah, you know what? I've actually been thinking, Logic and Cog, I've been thinking about getting back into Call of Duty. I've since Helldivers, I've been getting that itch again to play a first-person shooter. And actually watching the Halo Season 2 on Paramount Plus is kind of giving me that itch.
Yeah,
let me tell you, I wasn't a big fan of the first season.
Me neither.
I like Season 2. I like Season 2.
That's big from you. That's for
like,
you to
yeah,
that's big.
Yeah, I didn't like Master Cheeks.
Yeah, too much.
Yeah.
Too much. Yeah. Face out all the time, every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And certain little without spoiling, covenant decisions on who they interact with.
Yeah. No, you can spoil it. I think this came out a year ago? This is for season 1?
Yeah, you can spoil I'll leave it alone. I will leave it alone because there's some people that still haven't watched.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I agree with you. I didn't like the liberties they took with canon, especially with the Covenant and who the Covenant choose to associate themselves with. I'll just leave it at that.
Exactly.
Like what? Like what? Well, how does that make sense?
Like, but I will say we doing?
Yeah.
But this season they on track. New director, right?
I don't know. It seems to have a darker tone to it.
Okay.
But it takes place, during it's around the fall of Reach. And I said this to Logic this week. I'm actually thinking about playing Reach again because Reach was just one of those. Reach was a great Halo game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the ending of Reach. Can we spoil the ending of Reach?
Oh man, yeah, that's
right, like a gut punch.
Yeah. That was really well done.
Yes,
because it starts to hit home, no matter what happens. That inevitability, right? And it's just that's special. I like when games get creative in that way. It's subtle, but it was creative and it hit home. It drove the point home. So yeah, I'm with you on that one, big time.
And I wonder if maybe. Look, as a fan, I would have loved to see them do to coincide with season 2, like a remaster, remake, preferably a remake of Halo, Halo Reach, because I said this on Twitter. I said, hey, season 2 of Halo is actually better than Halo Infinite, the campaign.
It's like that, okay?
Yeah, Infinite was such a disappointment for me. Look, the multiplayer I think is great. I think you would agree, me Logic. Like me Logic and Slow Mo and Forte on occasion. We've actually played quite a bit of the multiplayer, and the multiplayer is actually the gunplay. The mechanics are great.
Yeah,
but I just. The campaign just didn't do it for me.
It didn't do it for you. Not for you.
Yeah.
Not for you.
So,
Not for you.
But yeah, definitely check out season 2 of Halo on Paramount Plus if you haven't done so. I
gotta get to it.
Yeah, I'm actually really enjoying it. I can't wait for tomorrow. Actually, and that wasn't me last year. I was like, come on, why the cheeks? Come on.
Yeah, I was like, what are we doing? Like, I was just kidding. I roll my eyes so many scenes. So if me and you had that same energy to hear you say what you're saying now about it, like now you have my attention. And a lot of people have been kind of expressing the same thing, which is like, they've really done their job. So I believe it was like a director change or something like that as well. So yeah, hopefully they're on track right now. I'll definitely get to it.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right, we had today we had the Nintendo Direct. They showed off some games. They showed off some Xbox games.
Yes, they did.
So now we know that Pentiment and Grounded are officially coming to the Nintendo Switch. Now, Grounded will be launching on April 16th, and Pentiment actually releases tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which I was surprised. Now, those weren't the only games. There was a couple other games. Unicorn Overlord was one. A Ranger, which is a role-playing adventure, was another. Monster Hunter Stories
Yes.
was also announced. I believe that's the game that's not coming to Xbox, though, right? I
Yes,
saw
that
some
one
people,
looks like it's missing. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I saw some people upset about that and maybe suggesting that it's not coming because of whatever's going on with Xbox and them bringing first party. But I don't think that's the case, to be honest. I just don't. And I only said it because we got the announcement of Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, which was announced there as well. That's also coming to PC, PS5, PlayStation 4, Xbox XS, and Xbox One. What's interesting, Logic? I thought about when I with this particular announcement, I thought about what we talked about earlier today when you talked about the support of both current gen and last gen by third party developers. So that made me think about this game, or that conversation we think when they announced this game. Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection was announced as well. World of Goo 2. Some interesting games here, by the way. Penny's Big Breakaway, South Park Snow Day, another Crab's Treasure. Very interesting games. Contra. Look, Contra.
Old school.
Contra.
Mm-hmm.
Up, down, left, right, BA, select,
start. Let's go.
Pepper Grinder. Sakia game multiplayer mode expansion DLC. Tales of I don't pronounce this correctly. Kinzira?
Oh yeah, that's the brother from the African brother about to fall. They passed away. Cool art style.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was original, I believe. Yeah.
That was the game that was revealed at the Keeleys, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
All right. Super Monkey Ball, Banana Rumble, Pocket Card Jockey, Right On, Gundam Breaker 4, Fantasy Life: The Girl Who Steals Time, Sword Art Online, Fractured Daydream, Kingdom Come Deliverance, Royale Edition, and Snufkin Melody of Moon Vandali. I don't pronounce that correctly. Demon Slayer, and more rare games being announced for Nintendo Switch Online. So some of the classic rare games, by the way, like RC Pro Am.
Yeah.
Who on the panel played RC Pro Am, by the way? I did.
I did.
I didn't because I wasn't a Nintendo kid growing up, but I will definitely play it now. But but the big one that Rare is bringing to Nintendo Switch Online is Killer Instinct.
Yes, I did see that. Killer Instinct. Yep. And Battletoads.
Yeah.
Are we going to get another Killer Instinct?
If I had to guess, I'd say yes. And if I had to guess, I'd probably say most likely it'll be multi-plat. I just feel like as a proponent of the FGC, it just makes perfect sense. I'm playing Tekken 8 right now and just loving the fact that I can play with PC and PlayStation gamers. Oh my, don't get me started. Like, I'm more ready a Tekken fan. I've played the series from the very beginning, 30 years in. I'm gonna tell you right now, BRAP, this thing, it's special. Besides the graphical fidelity of UE5, I think it's by far the best looking fighting game. But as far as where they're changing the game is truly teaching people how to play and basically onboard new players correctly. And I think that is one of the biggest battles because most people are very intimidated, from these type of games. And I think the Ghost battle system is innovative with the way they utilize AI and the tendency of the top players. They have a replay system where you can basically your last couple of fights, if we fought each other, it will show the replay, my profile versus your profile. In the middle of the replay, it'll stop and say, hey, Brap, when Cog was doing this, you could have punished him by doing this. Then enter the replay at the moment of the suggestion and practice. And then when you're done, continue the replay, and they still offer some type of feedback. It's really revolutionary.
Oh, wow.
Stuff. Oh, bro, it's listen, I can't get enough of Tekken 8. It's crazy. And the last thing is, I think where Mortal Kombat has lapped everybody has been narrative storytelling. And the thing with what they're doing now is they know that Mortal Kombat involves all the characters and tries to tell a cohesive story towards the end. They're finally incorporating all their characters, but what they've done is kind of like identify themselves for who they are. Like, we're going to be over the top. We're going to be anime. We're going to be silly on certain things, and we're going to have serious moments. But, man, they showed out, bro. So I highly recommend Tekken. If you were on the fence about it, I would highly recommend it. It's great for newcomers. And the last thing is Arcade Quest. So basically, you could create an avatar of yourself, and you literally go. They have like the arcade scene, bro. Like you know, what I'm saying, like your basement radio. They got basement radio arcade in there, man. Like you go to the arcades, and then there's a guy that kind of trains you. Hey, you got to work on this, and then you meet other players, and there's like these little rivalries in the arcade. Really cool, and it really teaches you the basics of Tekken and the new mechanics. Brad, I'm telling you, man, if you're gonna give it a shot or it's on a sale, you want to wait, you gotta get Tekken 8. I would argue, so I've been playing Tekken from the very beginning. 3 was transformative. 1 is always special to me because that was a System 11 board that showed me the power of PlayStation 1. And I was like, okay, that's damn near arcade perfect. So that's it. 3, that is really what put them on the map to surpass Virtua Fighter. 5 was kind of like a get back to basics. And 7 saved the series because Tekken Tag Tekken Tag 2 was really disastrous for them. But 8, man, I think it's the GOAT. I gotta say, it's early. I know it might sound hyperbolic, but I think 8 is the GOAT, man. I really do. It's that special, and it's early, and it's gonna evolve. They're gonna still add. I watched a stream with Harad and them last night, but yeah, I would say give this one a shot if you haven't played Tekken in a while.
All right, it's been a long time since I played Tekken. Go ahead, Logic.
Yeah, I was gonna say what I really like is the campaign, and I haven't stuck with it. I mean, I actually I was really in love with Tag Tournament, and that's probably just because of the way that like we played. So when that game was out, let me see how I want to describe this. So at any rate, the game came out. There were a bunch of us who played, and we and the way we played it, it was you always had to play random. So we didn't. So nobody could get like their preferred character. You couldn't use spam attacks and stuff. You were forced to play random, and so they kind of created some randomness in the outcomes because sometimes you would go up against a really good player, but they wouldn't. But they would get like a crappy character.
Right.
So and then as long as you were winning, then you stayed on. Yep. And then we just rotated, and we would play. I mean, we would play like 3-4 hours on a night. So it was always awesome. But what I like about this campaign is they really, there's a lot of the fights like really force you to learn defense, which to me is kind of the Achilles heel of any fighting game. Like it lets you get away with button mashing. It doesn't force you to figure out defense. It doesn't force you to figure out like other attacks. But this game really does a really good job of that. And like you said, I agree. It just looks spectacular.
Whew, that UE5, BRAP, I'm telling you, you're going to see that thing moving out here. And I felt Mortal Kombat looked phenomenal. But yeah, Tekken is just a leap above to me. You know, we're at that point now where the in-game is blowing away the cinematics. I'm like, oh, y'all didn't even need to do the cinematic. I could have just left this in game. That's how good UE5 is moving out here with Tekken. It's phenomenal, man. Really impressive. And the music, so much. They got the special style for people who don't want to learn the combos, for beginners. They got a lot. I mean, not learn like the complexities of the characters. They simplified it on certain things where people were intimidated as well. And that can go on and off at the fly.
Oh, okay. I might have to check it out. It like I said, it's been a very long time since I touched a Tekken game. Like definitely 10 plus years. So yeah, I might try it out. You may have sold me on this, but but back to Nintendo Direct. So we got we know the Xbox games that are coming to Nintendo now.
Yes.
We also know that later today, after the Nintendo Direct, it was announced that Sea of Thieves is now coming to the Sony PlayStation in April. So that's Pentiment Grounded coming to the Nintendo Switch. Also, Hi-Fi Rush was officially announced to launch on PlayStation 5 next month. So those are 4 games right now. Those are the 4 games that Phil Spencer mentioned last week in the I know Logic, you and I disagree on this. What I thought could have been a memo.
Oh man,
the Xbox business event update. Yeah, and in a statement, Matt Booty said, "This is as reported by GameIndustry.biz." He said, "As a publisher and platform, we're committed to meeting players where they are by bringing more games to more people on more devices." So I got to ask you, gentlemen, now, and I'll go to you first, Cog. Is it just 4? Is it just 4, or is this really just? I mean, one of the things that stood out to me
Mm-hmm.
Phil Spencer said, we're going to learn.
Mm.
And to me, my interpretation of that was, okay, learn. So basically, you're going to see how this goes. If this works well, you're going to bring more stuff.
Right.
Because that would be only
seems to be logical.
Yeah, logical, right? I mean, and so I'm not saying whole slate. I'm not saying we're going to see Gears of War. Maybe.
Right.
But this is a different. We talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
The Xbox that I love. This isn't that's gone, and I've accepted that now.
Okay.
This is a new Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
These 4 games are coming, and these aren't big titles by any stretch of the imagination. These are titles though, like Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment that were reviewed very well by critics.
Mm-hmm.
Sea of Thieves, as my understanding, has done pretty well for Microsoft as a live service game. It kind of makes sense to have a Sea of Thieves go on other platforms, considering it's a live service game.
Yeah.
Same thing with Grounded.
I mean, not just for Microsoft, but I mean in general as an industry benchmark, right? It's charted NPD. You know, it's a paid game on Steam. You know, so it's charting, and it's not charting because it's free to play. You know, it's through microtransactions. I mean, they're making money off that too, but the game's just commercially doing very well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, despite its slow start, and then we talk about like a pay to play game, live service game. You look what Helldivers is doing now.
Oh, yeah.
It's second now at what I checked earlier this evening on the Steam charts. It was 400 and something thousand concurrent players. Although they got to fix the servers. The servers are still, at least on the PC side, there's kind of a workaround trick on the PlayStation 5. But the server issues drive me nuts.
Yeah, I heard it's pretty intense. That's the only reason why I held off. I was like, let me just wait before I get into it. Plus, I was occupied with Like a Dragon and Tekken, but I definitely want to play it. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I've heard some horror stories about the servers.
Oh, yeah. I literally, Logic can attest to this. I was waiting for about 50 minutes to get into a server.
Oh, wow.
and the only reason that 50 minutes went by fast, I was talking to Logic while I was waiting. And Logic's like, nah, you wouldn't see me do that. And Logic, I don't think you'd wait 5 minutes, right?
No, I have a protocol that has some timers and brackets. I don't. Yeah. Hamp don't wait 5 minutes.
Yeah. And actually, in that conversation while I was waiting, I think Logic, we came out with a new business model for servers.
Oh.
What was it? Pay to the fast lane.
Oh yeah, that's right. The fast lane pass for servers. Yeah.
Yeah, just like amusement parks, you have to wait in line.
Oh, we got the fast lane. We go prioritize the traffic. That's what
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's like gold card.
Ooh, that's that VIP. I see y'all. That's funny. That'd be funny though. They probably would make money off that.
Somebody's taking notes right now. Somebody's taking notes and considering the ways to monetize the industry more. Oh, wait a minute. I'm just listening to BRAP, and it's a great idea.
Fast pass.
But yeah, I mean, some of these games. So Cog, I'll go to you first. I mean, do you think that this is really, because this has been the debate that I've been seeing online, that some people are saying this is only for, other people are saying like, hey guys, this is opening Pandora's box. This is, I mean, this is, they are opening up Pandora's box, and now you can't shut that box. There's probably going to be other games.
Yeah, I mean, I just look at it as a fundamental pivot in strategy. And when I look at companies that do that, to me, the financial guys, they have internal targets that have to be met. So I have to internalize it, even though I don't have the data in front of me. Nothing has been officially disclosed, but I have to internalize it that, they are looking at sustainability, and they're looking at the long-term revenue. And for whatever reason, whether it be, if I had to guess, maybe the APK situation, the holding up of that with legality, or whatever it may be, just the numbers, the math ain't mathin'. So sometimes if the math ain't mathin', you've got to pivot if you want to be around and sustainable. So, probably there's a list of games, sent up as far as things that they either see a lot of potential in or just may have, reached their saturation point on the platform. So now it's like, all right, what else can we do? And you look at a game like Hi-Fi Rush, which phenomenal game, critically acclaimed. I think it's a situation, if I had to guess, again, I'm just guessing, I do think as great as the Shadow Drop was for the hardcore base, and people who watched the direct, it really wasn't any marketing rollout. And if you're not in the Xbox ecosystem, you still may not know about a Hi-Fi Rush, right? I think the game was initially supposed to be revealed at the Game Awards, which I thought would have been, don't get me wrong, I'm not mad that they did it as a gamer who thought it was cool, and I thought they had a great showing at the direct. I'm wondering in retrospect if that did hurt the game on some level. But anyway, to where we are now, you've got Tango Gameworks. They look at the potential of that game and say, man, this could be a really good franchise for us moving forward. What could that do now that we've exhausted, as far as Game Pass and as far as the sales on the Xbox ecosystem? What would it do on another platform? And you got to be honest, if you look at the game cell shaded art style, it does kind of feel like Switch energy, and I could see a play on PlayStation or another platform. So you got that, Pentiment, which I played. I loved, at first I came in hating because I wanted a bigger game from Australia. But then when I played it, I'm like, wow, this is really telling an in-depth story for the time period with a lot of nuance on how you handle it. So like this mystery. So that you got that. Grounded, a game that is live service. I always feel like live service specifically and multiplayer should live on other platforms if it exists. So I look at the 4 and I say, okay, these make sense. I do get it, right? Now the question becomes, how much revenue do they anticipate on these other platforms, maybe 6 months or a year out? And that's the question. That's something I have to wait and see that the data comes back. But clearly, they feel potential here. And to your overall question, this ain't gonna stop at 4. In my opinion, once you're exploring this, right? I think this is my overall point. I think they've learned the lesson from the Xbox One era. And what I mean is sometimes Microsoft is clairvoyant on where the industry is going to go, whether it be digital or what have you. But sometimes they're a little too aggressive with sending that message to the base. And let's be honest, the emotionality of the base, right? You know what I'm saying? Like the hardcore gamer, and sometimes they don't want to hear that right now. And I think they learned that with the Xbox One, with the all digital future camera in the box, when they were like, hey, this is what you got to do, and the messaging wasn't clear. And then we saw obviously what PlayStation said, okay, this is how you trade games, and they followed up, but finally they removed the camera from the box and DRM and so on and so forth. So look, that's what I think is happening here. I think they were very strategic not to mention the 4 specifically at the event, but at the same time, let's be honest, let's create another timeline. If we create another timeline where the Xbox event doesn't happen, business event, and you just wake up today and you saw Hi-Fi Rush, and you saw all these games without any explanation, and you just see Xbox games, imagine what the verbiage would be then, right? So they had to do that from a marketing standpoint to kind of prepare you and get you ready for what's about to happen. So to me, this is, I know it's going to sound messed up to say, this is kind of grooming. The grooming of where it's going to go. Now, if they get tremendous success on these 4, oh, you best believe it's going to be more. And I think ultimately what I care about, and this is the last thing I'll say, I'm curious what you and Logic have to say, is that, look, I'm old. I've been around where my favorite platform goes away. We've seen the TurboGrafx 16s, the Neo Geos, the 3DOs. I've been around the Dreamcasts where your favorite, if they are not sustainable, they go away. This is uncharted territory, right? Because on one hand, they're kind of doing third party, but on the other hand, they're saying, no, we're still committed to hardware. We're still, going to do Game Pass. We're still doing day and date. So I just need to see how this works. I'm not saying it's definitely going to fail. I'm not saying it's, definitely going to succeed. This is kind of uncharted territory on some level. And I'm curious. I'm curious to see how much return they get back. Because at the end of the day, when you get, a publisher like ABK, you're going to need ROI immediately. These investors, they want to see that return on investment big time, Yeah. And that's what this is about. So if this is about sustainability, I have no problem. Take my emotionality out of it. I will say, yeah, it did look weird. Like the Sega kid in me is, you get your old school Sega fandom, you're like, this looks weird, seeing it on another platform or whatever. But we could just be at that inflection point. This is a big moment. I'm not going to minimize it. It is big. We really don't see anything like this, but this is what they feel is sustainable for them. But yeah, so my overall, yes, there will be more. The matter of when, and I am very curious because of the negative reception on the rumors from a Starfield and all the other bigger titles. maybe they had a more aggressive approach initially, and now they may be tapering that back. But we'll see what happens and what's the cadence. So I'm curious how you guys internalize it. What's the feeling out here? What are you guys thinking?
Yeah, real quick, Cog. You talked about the messaging, which I'll talk about here shortly, and you mentioned Starfield and some of these bigger titles, which I'll circle back because there was an interesting article by The Verge, interviewed Tom Warren, Phil Spencer, that I want to bring up too. But I want to go over to the Logic here. Logic, the 4 games are announced. What are your thoughts? You think that this is just the beginning of what we're going to see from Microsoft moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, yes, but I don't. But I don't couch it in the terms like you just couched it, right? Like they're going to publish games on other platforms, but I don't feel like this is some monumental cataclysmic shift, right? This is not the asteroid heading towards the planet that is the ELE, right? like let's go back. Let's roll back to before Xbox, right? Now like nobody in our chat was around then. Microsoft was a game publisher. That's where they came from. That's where they're rooted. They build the technology and the tools and the substrate that pretty much all of gaming rides on top of, right? That's where their trajectory comes from, their source. Xbox has been added to the portfolio, right, and has become a slight adjustment to that trajectory from the beginning. But, now in my mind, they're just evolving to a point where, those kind of business vectors are kind of merging and converging. But, they never left behind being a publisher, right? We've had this discussion before, right? Everybody goes like, oh, God, they're going third party. And I'm like, they are a third party publisher, right? I don't know that they ever stopped being a third party publisher. They were a third party publisher before, right? They've continued to be, and they're going to be into the future. So, but this specific thing that they're doing now is largely driven by quantifiable, tangible things that we can see from the business, and there are just lots of things that lots of other people don't want to acknowledge. But those things are there. So, it is what it is, and I totally agree with what Cog said. When I look at where Sega was, Sega sold 40 million or so Genesises, Genesi. They were only outsold really by the Super Nintendo by about 9 million units. But then they sold about 9 million Saturns and then sold about 9 million Dreamcasts, right? So they had 2 generations where their sales numbers had stalled, right? And they weren't really moving forward. And that preceded them getting out. You saw the numbers that I posted to Twitter, right, over the last couple of days, right? Again, tangible things that people don't want to acknowledge. Xbox sold 80 million plus 360s. They then came in the next generation and sold probably just south of 50 million Xbox Ones. And now they're at just south of 30 million, right, Xbox Series. Like, that has a tangible impact on decisions, right? That people who are responsible for P&L make, and their knock-on effects to what the business needs to do and what the business needs to become. Game Pass numbers were at 34 million. 12 million of those were flips from games with gold, right? And are now core. That means they've been at roughly 22 million since 2022. 2 years.
They stalled.
They stalled.
Yeah.
Yeah, they stalled. They've done nothing but churn for the last 2 years. And part of that is what we've talked about on the show, right? It's management of the production pipeline, right? Putting things in the subscription service that give people a reason to go there.
Yep.
They've now sold, like we said, they've now sold about 27 million consoles. And what does that mean? That means when you deploy a game, right, and you put a game on there, you can only sell it to 27 million people. Right? There's 130 million or so Nintendo Switches. The MAU for the PlayStation Network is 123 million people. Right? Sometimes runs a little lower than that.
Yeah.
Right? But there's 50 million PlayStation 5 sold. That means there's 70 million plus PlayStation 4 still out there. So again, are you going to invest the resources? No matter what, you're going to build a game, right? Let's just call it a AAA game, right? At a certain point, right up to a certain threshold, there's a fixed cost, right? Any AAA game is going to require a certain minimum amount of investment, right? And then it can float, at different levels above that. But let's call that baseline. Let's call it $50 million baseline cost, right? And so the question becomes, if you're going to expend the $50 million plus, are you going to expend it to deploy it on the platform that quite frankly, as we've talked about many times on this show, is like 9.87% of the total console install base on the market, even though it's yours, right? Now, like what Cog said, right? This is where business leaders decouple themselves from emotion. Exactly. Right, where head coaches don't listen to Bubba, who comes to the game every weekend painted in the team's colors, right? With his bare chest and his belly, right?
Slow down,
right?
Talk about who we want to start,
right? Head coaches, right, make calls. They don't let the crowd, sometimes to the detriment, but head coaches make calls that head coaches make. So. Again, just at a certain point, it starts to not make sense to only make a game just for your console when your console is the smallest, right, platform that can support it out there. Looking at Nintendo numbers, looking at the UK numbers that just came out, some Nintendo Life, like I've mentioned, I think I mentioned on the show, Nintendo Life I really like. Most other sites, when they post the UK numbers, they only show like the top 10, but Nintendo Life actually shows, I think it's the top 40 that comes out. And again, these are physical sales, but it's a bellwether, right? It's something that lets you take the temperature in the room. They actually are also now publishing the split of cross-platform titles, which if you've read NPD numbers for a long time, you know that the way NPD numbers will list when you have seen charts where they list out the consoles, the console that they go from left to right, or at least historically they did. So they're actually listing the percentages. So when you see third-party publisher cross-platform titles that are coming out, in many cases, they are selling better on PlayStation 4 than Xbox Series. Now, again, that's a quantifiable, tangible thing that as a business leader, you have to start taking into account, right? And then, of course, and then it goes up from there, right? Many, most times sell better on Switch and sell better on PlayStation 5. So, all these things, are just gonna point them in a certain direction. I think the last number that I'll mention is, I mentioned this on the show before. We have a lot of people in the community who run around saying, Phil has turned Xbox revenue around, and they're the highest earning, blah 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 blah, right? They haven't decomposed those numbers. When you look at Xbox gaming software sales, 2012 they were at 7.7 billion. From 2012 through 2019, downward trend, cratering in 2019 at 4.5 billion. Again, when you isolate the software sales. 2020, when the industry, I hate to say it, but was just doing rain dances from all the money that was falling on top of their heads from people being in locked rooms.
Forecasting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They were at 4.5 billion. I'm sorry, they were at 4.8 billion. An incredibly low year, while the rest of the industry was raking it in. Now, during the pandemic years, they made huge jumps, right? Jumping up to 6.3 billion, 7.8 billion or so. And they are, in 2023, I think software sales, I think they were at about 8.5 billion. So these narratives that go around that talk about, Phil has done a great job with regards to revenue. I mean, he's done a great job in terms of they're still part of the Big Ten that earns 67%, 2/3 or so of the revenue in the industry, but that team hasn't really moved the needle, right? They've spent even before the ABK acquisition, they had spent around $40 billion or so in aggregate making acquisitions, and that was so that they could go from software sales of 7.7 billion in 2012 to 7.8 billion of software sales in 2022. Right, so $40 billion spent to move the needle. I mean, $1 million, like that. At a certain point, you start thinking about doing something different.
Yeah, that goes back to what Cog and you said about ROI. We talked about I think Cog was you said that you make that big, $70 billion purchase of Activision.
Yeah,
People are posting things of gifts of Amy Hood. I want my money back. I mean, like, all jokes aside, I mean, look, I said this before. When you spend that kind of money and you're not seeing growth in certain areas, and we saw the leaks. If you remember the leaks on the growth of Game Pass, where they wanted it to be in 3 years from now. What was it, like 90 million subscribers or something?
Internal targets. Yeah, internal targets not met.
Yeah, they're not met. It feels like, hey, if we don't hit this, there's going to be a different conversation. We're going to have different.
I remember conversations with Amy Hood in reference to you sure we're not building a moat around what we're trying to do, and in reference to cloud service and the investment there, that was being questioned. I remember even the potential cancellation of Fallout 76 at one point. And at the time, it wasn't on PlayStation. I believe then they put it on PlayStation Network. And then that got them to that internal target that they saw. That why they want to keep sustaining it, and it's turned around. So yeah, these are indicators. And like you said, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's like you said. Once corporations see that, then it's like, okay, we have to pivot. We have to make a change. Otherwise, we're trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah, especially with what Logic just described, when you think about almost like that flat revenue growth, despite heavy investments, billions of dollars of investment into that business, and you're still kind of more or less teetering where you were before. I mean, that's when those kind of like the bean counters are gonna be like, wait a minute, guys, like we did this, but we're still at the same, like we're still kind of in the same place. Like what's happening here? Like that's, and maybe to your point, Cock, that maybe this is the end result is this, what we're seeing today with, the idea of exclusive games going to more platforms. I've made this argument before. If your hardware sales have been trending down since the Xbox One, and this generation you're seeing negative growth, because we see the numbers. They talk about year-over-year negative, I think 3-4 consecutive quarters of negative hardware growth. Well, you're going to have challenges selling software. What do you do then? And this, to me, just seems like the natural pivot for them. It's like we have this thing, we have this platform, Game Pass, we have all this content. Maybe it makes sense for us just to put it everywhere. But real quick, I want to introduce Bubba with his face painted green. We have my fellow Commanders fan here, Slow-Mo Backslap. What's up, Slow-Mo?
Slow-Mo, this is Bubba, and Bubba's a bit offended. Okay, because Bubba's been a fan of this team for 30 years, and he's seen coaches come and go, and he's seen coaches make the same stupid mistakes, and then blame everything on other things that are not the actual problem and the reason why they don't win games. Bubba's been the one that's been like, you keep saying the run game don't work, but the run game don't work because you only run the ball one time a drive, and you only get 3 yards, man. And you said, well, we didn't get no yards from it. Well, you don't run the ball, stupid. That's why the run game don't work.
Gotta commit.
You gotta commit to it. And you got to actually make the other team feel like you actually would run the ball instead of just using it to fake as a pump fake. You see, some of these old time fans have been watching long enough that they may not have the degree, but they know when something is an L. And they know when there's a problem. And the Xbox problem isn't that they invested $8 billion in ZeniMax, and that they invested $70 billion in ABK and didn't get their return on investment yet. Their problem is they've been doing the same thing and complaining about why it hasn't been working. I mean, look, we clearly saw smart people who know how to make money in Google come into the gaming industry, act like they know what they're doing because they made money in other areas, came in this, and what was the one thing they were missing? Exclusive games. And what's the one thing? They had the best streaming service.
Oh yeah, quality was good.
I mean, Xbox is now doing things with their new controller that they were doing with their Stadia controller. But what happened to the Stadia? Where's Stadia now? Can you go sign up for Stadia now? Nah. They out. Because as soon as they realized the investment they had to make in first party games, they was like, yeah, we ain't down for this. We out.
It wasn't enough. That was good.
I mean, it's a pretty simple solution. Run the ball, stupid. And here's the run the ball, stupid for Xbox.
Break it down. Let me hear it.
You don't market your games. You don't market your console. You have a service that you claim is your all platform, your Game Pass, but the casual gamer don't even know what Game Pass is. You failed in messaging. These are your issues. So you when it comes to localizing your games, you're awful, and your reputation around the world is you're the Kia of gaming. You are the basement brand of gaming because your games outside of English speaking. No. This is true. The Kia is true.
Oh.
Outside of English speaking markets. Outside of English speaking markets, people can't read your games, understand your games. Your localization is trash. It's true. Not even in the same context of the language correctly that they would understand. So when that is what they know about your brand, you come out with more games. What are they going to think? I mean, I've seen a Kia before, and I don't care how good you make this new Kia look. You're still Kia. So your reputation sucks, and it takes a while to build that back up, and you can't build that back up and make your brand better by putting your games on your competition.
So what's the solution? How we get out of this? I don't want to be a Kia no more.
You don't want to be a Kia no more. You're gonna have to do what Honda do. You're gonna have to do what BMW does. You're gonna have to do what Volvo does. You're gonna have to actually. Oh man, I mean, like old school market your games. How many Red Bulls you're gonna have to actually do the work that your rivals do in areas of the world that you don't care for.
I feel you, but here's the thing: like we all agree that I think it's fair to say that the Xbox One generation was a devastating generation for them to lose.
Absolutely,
right? Because now we have established digital libraries, right? And once you've established digital libraries, people tend to lock into that ecosystem once they've made all their purchases there. So it almost reminds me of the age old, like you ever go to, I'm an Android guy, but you ever go to some people's house, like this is an Apple house. You don't have those, and this is all you don't have lightning connectors here. You know what I'm saying? So to me, that I get what you're saying. So I'm not saying there's no truth to what you're saying. I get it, but they also got the double whammy of people not wanting to leave the ecosystem, right? And how do you get that person to come over when they're like, hey, like I speak to Colin all the time. Like we kind of had this discussion all the time. So he was like, all right, so if we do it. And I think I came up with a solution. A temporary solution was like, we're going to do this thing called like, they're like smart delivery. We're just going to call it like smart entitlements, where it's like, because his thing is like, I don't want to come over to Xbox and I lose all my trophies. So he wanted at the bare minimum, like a third party recognition of his trophies carrying over on the Xbox platform. So basically what I'm trying to say, it just shows you how married people are to their ecosystem, and being that they, let's be honest, like completely fumble that generation from the start. And then Phil comes in and it's like you're playing catch up ever since. And then you're course correcting, right? From the minute he gets in, he's course correcting, getting this, get the connect out, changing all this. And then let's be honest, these they're like 5-3. Who was the 3? It was like Rare. What was it? I'm trying to remember who it was back in the time. There was no.
They had Rare. Yeah. They had Lionhead Studios. Remember them? R.I.P. 343, the Coalition, and I mean I can't remember what the last one was, but that was not Play. They didn't have Playground. Yeah, remember they actually bought Playground when they bought Ninja Theory and Undead Labs and all of them. But God, to your point, right? They do have a bigger hill to climb, but because it's they dug themselves in the hole of their own, right? So with their own shovel, they dug themselves in that hole.
Absolutely.
So you have
we got a console for you.
Right. Yeah. So you have to dig yourself out. But what is it that we see primarily Xbox fans do with PlayStation? The ones that are honest gamers that just like games. We have seen in this community all the time. Xbox gamers who primarily play on their Xbox. Well, I still own the PlayStation because I want to play their first party exclusives.
Mhm.
If you got good content, people can hold out one game. All right, man, that's one game. I ain't buying the whole. Some people, not me, because I bought a PlayStation 4 for Until Dawn, and that's not even the primary game that I like. If I look at the PS4 generation, what games that I played the most on that, it would not be. Oh, I played the most Until Dawn. No, but that's the game that got me to go buy one, and then everything else is just other exclusives, other games. That's what we see primarily from the Xbox community. How come you telling me that's not going to be possible with the PlayStation community if you provide compelling content?
Absolutely.
We can't say that they've had the games because they haven't had the games for very long. We went a long period of time with no games from the Xbox side, or mediocre offerings, or games that come out incomplete like Sea of Thieves, or games that come out undercooked like State of Decay, Crackdown. So many different games that came out with that. It wasn't a complete. I'm gonna buy an Xbox for this game because it provides something I'm not getting anywhere else.
Master Chief Collection, the disaster of that. Absolutely.
Exactly.
All that did tremendous damage.
Now they finally even the studios we just mentioned, some of them haven't released a single game under Xbox. Acquired 6 years ago, still haven't released the game. But that's the AAA game, right?
Slow-mo.
What you say?
Games take time.
Right. But apparently not enough time for Microsoft because they already moved on from from the traditional philosophy of this industry where you provide games that people want and then people come to you to go get those games like they do for Nintendo and Sony. They're not waiting for that. They're like, no what? Sorry. We waited too long. You guys haven't delivered your games yet. We're going to go start putting these games everywhere else. But what happens when the cracks in your business philosophy start to show on other platforms too? What if these games don't sell over there either? What if they only sell in English-speaking territories that are somewhat interested in these games like they do on your platform? What happens then? Because you suck at localization, and you suck at marketing, you suck at messaging, you suck at anything that comes to building a brand and brand loyalty. Well, what do you do then? What will you do then when the only thing that sells is Call of Duty and Minecraft and Diablo? But that's all multi-plats anyway. We know these four ain't the only four.
Right, of
so
course.
What's next?
Yeah,
so what's next, right? Right. Let's say Starfield goes over there.
Yeah.
So I guess the question, and I'm gonna give it back to you, BRAP, is but we have to admit, it's as dire as the Xbox One generation was, and there's no denying that. Everything you spent in there is 100. I will say that we have to admit that they tend, as an industry, to be forward thinking as far as where the industry is going to go. There seems to be a prevailing thought that not that the wall garden will come down completely, but we are seeing signs. Even on the PlayStation side, we're seeing a tremendous success of Helldivers 2, launching on PC day and date. And that revenue, I know y'all saw them Hiroki Totoki comments. My
problem with the way that's being construed is that it shouldn't flummox anyone that a game as a service, that a live service game releasing day and date makes sense. Absolutely. And in my opinion, that shouldn't be seen as this groundswell change in the PlayStation strategy. They've been telegraphing that they were going to put games as a service, live service games day and date on PC. We all know that it only makes sense to have the player base there. What we also can't take away is that it should also be clear that deploying that game to Xbox and to Nintendo is a different technology leap as well.
Yeah, I'm not going there. Not to interrupt you. I totally get that point. What I'm trying to say is, though, there was resistance. It took a while because the initial offerings, I believe, were Days Gone, the original Horizon. Those were not day and date. So basically, it's been a slow progression. They're looking at the data to see what they're getting from that, and then even I believe Miles Morales' numbers when we looked at the Insomniac leaks were kind of soft as far as waiting a year late. Right. So what I'm trying to say is now that Jim Ryan's going, Toki's in there, he's literally saying that we need to be more aggressive, right, in that space. Yeah. We need to maximize what's going on here. And it's almost like I'm going to every studio like, hey, you guys are motivated. You guys are great. But we need this revenue. You know what I'm saying? So basically, I'm not trying to say it's apples to apples with what's going on. Actually, you're completely right with that logic. Like, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is we're getting to a point with the console market, there's just that saturation as far as there is so much you're going to be able to cipher against this circle that's not growing. That's the thing. Like, there's a circle in the console market that's the most you're going to be able to maximize. And PlayStation they are like number one. They're one of the best. And they themselves now, we're talking about not just revenue, we're talking about profit, right? They want to maximize that. And I think what we're seeing is a shift. But back to Slow-Mo's point, where I was getting at, is that I hear what you're saying. This is a huge bet. I don't know if this is the way to go. But I guess my question is, because it was self-inflicted, what alternative do you have unless you intend to not be in the industry anymore? And I think that's where I'm at with it. If it's about sustainability, then do what you got to do. But I understand the frustration, and I understand, to your point, Slow, and I will give you this, I understand the perception of brand damage, right? Mm-hmm. Because if we consider video games as PlayStation and Nintendo, right? And you are now putting some of your properties on platforms, right? I understand people's logic. Well, maybe you might not be, devaluing or lowering the brand of what you're trying to do. And people may say, hey, you know what? Maybe I hold out. Maybe Hi-Fi Rush 2 does eventually come to my platform, kind of thing. I'm very curious to see how that works for them. There's a lot of questions. I just feel like we're in this uncharted territory because I've never seen this before. I've never seen my consoles start to not perform well. They go away. I've never seen this where it's like we're still third party, but we're still going to make hardware. We're still going to acquire. This is uncharted stuff. It's very interesting. I just thought we were in a different space.
I'm gonna say this real quick, and and I know some people in the chat ain't gonna like it, but it's how I see things, and even being Bubba with his face painted green, he can see the writing on the wall. So Hiroki, and I like Hiroki because he's a very blunt speaking dude.
He's straight with
I watched that the
you know why he's blunt, right, Slow-Mo? He's a cost control guy.
He's a bean counter. He's the money guy. He don't care about your feelings at all.
He's in there looking at ways to.
He said in the past we cared about focusing and funneling people towards the PlayStation, and now we're being more aggressive with us in multi-platforms and things. And so that's not necessarily meaning they're going to Xbox and Nintendo. I agree with that. I do not think they're going there. But when it comes to PC, I think some people need to get over it.
Yeah. People need to wake up with that.
Wake up. Hiroki don't care about your feelings.
He don't care about your feelings.
Not at all.
Putting them over there.
Let me answer this question. This is not a feeling based question, right? Mm-hmm. When people suggest this, deploying games to PC requires additional level of effort and additional time. So this notion that theoretically games are going to go day and date to PC, what are all the things that need to happen in order for that to happen? And how do we know that then they are at break even? Because the other thing that he has said is for the division to tighten their belts and to perform with greater operational excellence and gain greater margin. I don't see those things as being concurrent.
I understand that, right? And then so because it's like in order to go day and date, you actually need to spend more. In order to make sure that happens. You're right about that logic, and this is the reason why I kind of like. I'm not saying as I was saying, it's not doesn't mean they're going on Xbox and Nintendo, but it also doesn't necessarily guarantee you're getting day and date anytime soon. Like he's talking about being more aggressive. I think that could be anywhere between them shortening the time span of that delay to PC. Before they talked about a year or two. What if it's now like 6 months to a year at the most? You know, like that could be construed as more aggressive because it's doing more on the PC platform than you were doing a year ago, right? And it could be day and date, but then we're not privy. He didn't go into detail about those plans, and there wasn't a follow-up question in regards to what he was the question that he was answering, what he was speaking on. That said, I do think that you're probably going to see people are really going to hate this, but you're probably going to see Xbox put their first-party games on the rival console platforms day and date before you see Sony do day and date on PC. I know. I'm not saying
live service. I can definitely see that with live service.
Right, and I'm not saying that's like it's a race to that point that is a wide gap. It could be a very narrow thing, but I think Xbox is far more willing to do that right now than PlayStation is. But I think that's eventually going to be their future. Whether it takes them time to build up the kind of like support studios, like more Nixes, you know, in order to make sure that's a reality, that may take time, and that might be something they're working on in the background. So it's not like the very next release, like the releases in 2025 are going day and date, but that could be the eventual future. And whoever takes over as CEO for Hiroki, like he's talking about being more aggressive. Like they're not gonna hire somebody who ain't on the same page as what the new program with the playbook is. You know, they ain't gonna hire somebody who's gonna come in and throw the playbook out the window immediately. You know, if you're interviewing for the job and you're saying, "Oh, I can work with your struggling quarterback. I can make him good," right, Dre Gruden, right, RG3, you know, like you come in and you immediately like, this dude stinks, I'm going to someone else. Like they're gonna be like, look, you said you was going to try, bastard. What the heck are you doing, right? So that they're not going to hire a CEO that's just going to be like do the complete opposite of what Hiroki's thinking. So they're at the very least they're shortening this delay to PC. But like I think people acting like what he's talking about, oh, he's just talking about what they've been doing. No, listen to his words. In the past, he started with in the past, and then he said more aggressive. Like what? Huh? Like words have meanings, you know. My
point is, and I mean, you spoke to it. And my point is, what I wanted to get injected in the conversation is that, as I always talk about these things, right? There are 99 different variables. Right, and being more aggressive could address any single one of those, and I would think would address becoming more profitable while not impacting other financial parameters, right? Because I mean, why would you rob Peter to what? I don't even remember what the saying is, right?
Rob Peter to pay Paul.
Right. So my point is that the vast majority of the community is getting on their jump to conclusions mat, right? And leaping to this assumption that it means day and date. And that, like I said, in 10 seconds, right, I asked 3 questions that pick that apart, right? I think it's far more likely. So more aggressive, like you mentioned, right, probably means, or at least could mean, bringing another studio online, right? Bringing another port studio online. That's one. It could mean investing in additional technologies, because right now, as far as what I can tell, from what I can see from the dev pipelines that I see, none of them, neither PlayStation nor Xbox has wired an automated CI/CD pipeline that makes common the agile release train across multiple studios and merges their common technologies so that can be run as a service, right? Instead of every studio having their own test organization and every studio having their own infrastructure and every studio having their own utilities and their own IT shop. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of those things that just don't make sense. Could also mean right paralleling up, because right now essentially they really put like one game in port pipeline at a time. So it could mean accelerating closing the gap on how staggered they are. Like I said, bringing another studio online so that you can run them concurrently. Another big thing that it could probably mean, they have a really deep back catalog of stuff that they've never ported. And let's talk about the company that apparently right now appears to be like super fond of remasters. Right? I mean,
are you implying there's a strategy there?
They've been said whole slate. So like I assume when Herman Hulse 2 years ago said whole slate that he intended that back catalog to go eventually. But to your point, if they bring on another, if they like acquire another Nixus to do that work, the game plan, because Nixus is backlog, I mean, they doing what they can. But now they're taking on the work of, say, like the way they were doing things before, if you notice, like they would have one support studio helping each developer, like Iron Galaxy kind of sort of helping, not more kind of sort of, they did the port for the Uncharted collection, which sucked. And then they did they helped Naughty Dog with the port of The Last of Us Part 1, which sucked even worse. Yeah, but they got Jetpack Interactive helping Sony Santa Monica with God of War. They Nixus has primarily been working with Insomniac, which makes sense. They're the best port studio, and Insomniac drops the most games. But now they also are doing the Horizon Forbidden Collection. So now they're actually doing. There was a different studio that did that initially, and it didn't. And if you remember, Horizon Zero Dawn did not launch that great. So maybe they wanted to go with someone who can make sure that it's far more playable than Horizon Zero Dawn was at launch. And if they bring in another studio, the goal is to get these games out faster, and not have, because Nixus can't do it all, and maybe the reason why some of these games are taking so long, like where's Ghost of Tsushima, where's Gran Turismo 7?
Yeah. I mean, they did come out and say, not to cut you, didn't he come out and make a statement stating that for the remaining of the year that no first party games would be coming from PlayStation? I believe, was that Totoki that said that earlier?
I think it was more along the lines of,
it was established.
Established.
So for example, like the major,
sequel to Ghost of Tsushima.
Right, we won't
another God of War,
because they got Concord coming, and probably maybe not this year, but in the fiscal year, which means before March of next year, Fair Games as well. So those are in the as well as Marathon as well, because technically Marathon would be
about his first party studio.
Right. So but that's all live service games, and that's all three of those are brand new IPs, so they're not established. They could bomb, they could do as well as Helldivers 2. We don't know, right? But they're not established IP. Like established IPs, Uncharted, The Last of Us, God of War, Ghost, Horizon. Those are the established ones, and they're saying they're not having any of those before.
Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off. Let me. I just want to interject here because I'll forget at this point. Couple things that Cog brought up, you brought up, Slow-Mo, Game Logic brought up that I want to touch on quickly because I took some notes here. You talked about Microsoft and them being Kia. One thing I agree with you, Slow-Mo, is that I think their messaging's been terrible for a long time. Like it drives me nuts. I think I've shared this sentiment with you, Cognito, that they remind me of the Washington Commanders during the Dan Snyder era. Like the messaging has just been bad. I mean, just across the board. I think. I mean, even Phil Spencer asking the question like, who does Helldivers benefit being exclusive on PlayStation and on PC? Not like, come on, Phil, really? Like we know the obvious answer to that. Okay, like it's play like just like that kind of stuff. It just stop talking. Just stop talking.
What got you upset though? I'm curious. Why that particular one?
Oh, just because it's what's frustrating is that they are always playing from a position of like you and I've talked about this, Cog. They're always reactionary. It's always on the defense. And I think it's because they talk too much. Frankly, we don't. But
I think that's fair. On some, me and Colin have had that discussion. I think there's some fairness there. But I will push back only. I'll interrupt you. I will push back only. Bro, when you are we have Peter Moore, when you are the third place company or whatever, you are the challenger brand. You have to go above and beyond to what your competitors are doing in that space that necessarily don't have to communicate because they are household names. So there's one part where I definitely hear what you're saying, where it's like, okay, maybe you just talking too much, you just need to be quiet and just head down, grindstone. But there's the other part of it where it's like, where you do have this base, and it's like you wanna support the people who are actually supporting your platform, which is not the popular platform. So I get it, catch 22, but I will give you this. The messaging has not been good. It's been very conflicting, because this is the last point, and I'll give it back to you. I'm sorry for interrupting. Is that the thing that because I've been talking to people internally, they hit me up all the time. It's like, yo, so what did you think? And I'm like, well, the messaging is mixed. Well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, the messaging is mixed because on one hand, you can't say our strategy regarding exclusives has not changed.
What do you?
And then the same breath,
that was a response. What do you mean?
Here's these four, right? Yeah. Literally, those statements literally could contradict each other. And that's what people are saying, because again, the frustration, I also want to be clear, the frustration from a lot of the hardcore and the base is not necessarily like, yo, I don't want anybody else playing these games. Some people do feel that way, but that's another story. But it's more so, how come you didn't trust the vision? Right, you acquired all these studios in 2018, that draft class, so to speak. You got the ABK, you got the Bethesda. Part of people was like, well, let's, hopefully see it through, right, and see what happens when now that it's in Game Pass and kind of stuff. So I get the frustration, but to your point, Brad, and I'll give it back to you, I do feel the messaging has been mixed, and it has gotten them in trouble a lot.
Yeah, well, this is to me, this is going to be something that probably gets them in trouble again. Tom Warren asked Phil Spencer last week. You mentioned that Starfield, Indiana Jones aren't part of the 4 despite rumors. But will those ever come to PS5? Can you rule that out? He says, I don't think we should, as an industry, ever rule out a game going to any other platform. We're focused on these 4 games and learning from the experience.
Okay, you can't rule it out because they're coming.
Yeah.
They're going. That's why you can't rule it out.
I agree.
And now I'm going to put on my NWO t-shirt.
Let's go. Oh, here come on. Let me see.
I'm going to put on my NWO
Here we go. It's heel turn. Let me hear it.
Here's my frustration with the coverage over this. You have content creators, influencers saying, well, Starfield, that rumor, that's not true. It's not coming. We found that out. No. Did you guys not read this article? Did you guys not read this interview with Tom Warren specifically asked Phil Spencer? It's an opportunity for Phil to be like, hey, you know what? Actually, those games aren't coming. He's literally saying, hey, I don't think we should, as an industry, ever rule out a game going to any other platform. That's the answer to that specific question regarding Starfield, Indiana Jones. So what's going to end up happening, Cog? And I think what's going to end up happening, not just copying to the panel, that they're going to release those games. Like someone's like, yeah, they're coming. And I agree with you, Slow-Mo. Those games are going to come out, and then people will be like, oh, they need, what happened here? That's not what they told us. And again, the mixed messaging. The other thing I want to mention too is
and then there'll also be the engagement merchants that will go, what do you mean?
See,
they told you.
Someone's got
they told you this was happening. I don't understand why people are confused.
I don't understand why people are upset.
And then people will quote when Phil Spencer from the Xbox business event, the same way some people are quoting Phil Spencer from the Bethesda Xbox live stream when they finally acquire ZeniMax Media, where he's quoted as saying, we made this acquisition to bring Xbox gamers exclusive content. Apparently, none of the people that's saying, what are y'all talking about? They've been said they were doing this. Remember that. Like that was because I remember some of these same engagement merchants shouting from the heavens that I remember certain podcasts. I'm pretty sure some of y'all are listening right now, so I ain't gonna say your names, but you know who you are.
Black History Buff, man. Not violence.
No violence, but no, they're gonna need to look in the mirror, because I remember some of y'all having your little soundboard start your podcast off with that.
Oh man!
You had your soundboard. Hold on. You had your soundboard start off with that quote. Now you act like the quote didn't exist. You know what don't exist? Your integrity. That's what don't exist.
Okay. All right.
I had a dream that all the podcast creators could get along. Play with.
Let me just finish with this, and I'm gonna be quiet for a minute.
All right. Yeah, because I have some other points. Go ahead, Slow-Mo.
This Nintendo Direct wasn't planned out of the blue.
No.
You saw my eyeballs.
No,
on that?
you just think about this. They weren't going to come out with this Xbox business event into spring. It ain't spring yet. So you telling me you was going to allow Nintendo to break this news?
Yeah, I talked about that
before
timeline.
things leaked out, right? Like, so wait a minute. So it took things leaking out and people going, "Hey, what you doing? Hold on, what?" For you to realize what the community response is going to be to you kind of reneging on what you said about these games. Because none of these are ABK games. These are ZeniMax Media and Xbox Game Studio games you're putting on Nintendo and PlayStation. You were going to allow this news to come out first before you explained yourself.
Yeah.
Like, that's being completely tone deaf and not understanding what your community looks for from you and what you have told your community, because a lot of people are following what you say lock and step.
Yeah.
When you say things and you pivot, they pivot. That this is a pivot without even telling them, "Hey, we pivoting in this direction." And you were just going to allow that to happen. Like, it really kind of hit me earlier today watching the Nintendo Direct. Like, this is a week later. Nintendo was going to do this last week.
Yeah.
And clearly you had to tell them, "Hey, can you delay this so we can do our little thing and try to explain ourselves?"
Yeah.
And, Nintendo being a good partner did. But it's just like the fact that was going to happen clearly.
Phil basically tipped his hat to that. Like, hey, we're going to let our partners.
He said
developers.
That's why they wouldn't say the 4.
Yeah, that's why they wouldn't say it, because they,
It's crazy.
The other thing I want to mention too is put my NWO shirt back on and my Hollywood Hulk Hogan music.
Here we go.
I'm not going to entertain people within a specific community saying that PlayStation's going to go day on day PC when those same people couldn't for whatever reason were obfuscating what CFO Tim Stewart said about a pivot and a change in strategy and bringing first party titles to rival platforms. Oh, he's just talking about ABK. No, he was not just talking about ABK. Like, reading is fundamental, and proof of what he's saying being true is what we're seeing, what was announced today. The other thing I want to mention too with the PC day and day thing, and this kind of idea that the industry's in trouble, it's changing, this is for the health of the industry. So with the PC day and date, what you said, Logic, I agree with. I think that conversation isn't given the nuance that it deserves. I think there's certain games like Helldivers, where the servers work, that makes sense. Day and date on PC, I'm not so sure that we're going to see that for the single player stuff. Day and date. Okay. I think with Totoki he's a cost control guy. I was talking to Falky about this. Falky's like, we're talking about, Falky has a similar background as Totoki. And one thing that stood out to me with Totoki's like Bungie needs to do a better job at their discretionary spending.
Bungie caught slugs this week. Sorry.
He's not wrong. Like,
he's not wrong. No,
I feel so sad for Bungie.
Yeah, and
I'm worried about that board. But continue.
Look, well, I mean, look, if they don't get their act together,
targets.
Yeah, I mean, look, but this is what I said, Kyle, before we went live. What did I say? This industry, and I think part of the issue too is people we're getting the curtains being pulled back, and people are finally getting a look into how the sausage is made.
Yeah,
and they don't understand. But what's happening isn't any different than what we see in other industries. The discretionary them getting a control of their discretionary spending, again, creating operational efficiencies, tightening the spending to increase profit margins. Look, their revenue numbers are good. Like, if you look at their revenue numbers, so it's not that business is the issue. There's other things that are happening right now that are impacting their profit margins. There's obviously one of the things that Falcon and I were talking about, and he's talked about on this show, and which led to the increases in Europe with the prices of the PlayStation 5 hardware what was that, a year or 2 years ago? I don't remember, but they I think we talked about this too, Cop, before we went live. The foreign exchange rate's killing them right now.
Yeah.
I mean, and you think about the foreign exchange rate for U.S. dollars to the Japanese yen. I mean, they're getting killed. But I don't. The PC Day thing is interesting because I think that the one piece that people are missing is, and to your point, Logic, you talked about the additional lifting, costs, things like that, resources, time to do those things. There's a potential cannibalization effect of hardware. And the question is does going day and date for them as a company make sense? Meaning that potential loss of hardware sale, that unit of hardware that they're going to lose out on because they're putting games on day and date. They're not just losing that $500 purchase. They're also losing everything that comes after that $500 purchase. And that is the revenue that's generated by that consumer once they're in the PlayStation, once they're inside the PlayStation 5. That means Sony's getting 100% cut on their first party stuff, and they're getting 30% on everything else they sell. Microtransactions, DLC, if it's their own MTX DLC, they're getting 100%. Third party stuff, they're getting all that 30%. Movies, whatever things you can buy, any little thing you can buy inside the PlayStation 5, they're getting a cut of that. And the question becomes, is giving up that cut worth one sale of a first party game day and date on PC where that person plays the game and then has really no other interaction in the ecosystem? They're done. They're buying everything on Steam now. And I can tell you as an example that when I shared with you, Cock, why I went to PC. When Microsoft said, hey, we're going to go day and date on PC, I'm like, okay, I don't want my Series X anymore. I don't need it.
I remember this conversation.
Yeah, and I left. And guess what I did? The money that I was spending inside the Xbox ecosystem, I took that and spent in the Steam ecosystem.
Right.
So that's the part that I think that isn't being discussed. It's really just this narrative that I've been seeing. The industry's changing. This is for the health of the industry. Exclusives need to go everywhere. And I'm like, no, guys. It's a little more complex than that because there are two platform owners right now that are doing well. And this goes back to the console space, the conversation of what Matt Piscatella said today. That
exactly.
that the console space, yeah, it's mature. And so we look at the two companies, and I don't know if somebody I think it was maybe you, Logic, earlier said that PlayStation is really kind of the dominant force in the console space. And for Microsoft to try to claw and get some market penetration has been downright challenging. They almost did it with the 360, and then they fumbled the ball. And so Nintendo and Sony are not in the same position in the console space as Microsoft is or the Xbox is. And so when I hear people talking about PC day and date, my point is only that it isn't just about selling the software on PC. It's about the potential cannibalization of that, of the console and what it means to Sony when that consumer buys the console, all the money they get from inside that console from that consumer spend. I always say the PlayStation 5 is a conduit to revenue because once that person buys it, and even then, like not every PlayStation 5 owner is of equal value to Sony because you have people that spend more money on the PlayStation 5 than other people. Like I'm one of those people. There are people out there that I know spend more money in the PlayStation 5 ecosystem than me. I have a PlayStation 5 primarily to play third-party exclusives. If they're not on PC, they're on PC. I'm going to get them on PC. And also the first-party stuff because I don't want to wait a year or 6 months to play first-party stuff. So my point is I think there's a little more nuance to this conversation.
There's definitely more nuance. Definitely more nuance. I guess my question to you then would be, when you look at a situation like a Helldivers 2 and this tremendous success of launching day and date, and I agree, I don't think everything as a whole, but I think we have to admit that live service is something that is definitely intriguing to them when they look at this data. I mean, I'm sorry, get Logic. I know you want to jump in. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, sorry. From my perspective, it's not intriguing. I get, like, semantically, I agree with what you're saying. But from my perspective is, yes, it's intriguing. That's why they have already made the decision that they were putting gas in live service games on PC day and date. There's this sentiment that this is like new, that like Helldivers 2 is like some windfall or some like, wackadoodle event like out of nowhere that nobody saw coming. Again, all of these games as a service, as far as we know, have been tuned and are getting configured, and the plan is laid for them to go to PC on the same day.
But to your point, I'm seeing people resistant to that. Just the thought of that.
Yeah.
That Sony shouldn't do that. And I just
that's just dumb. Yeah.
I don't want to say that. I respect. You going in. You chose violence.
I don't disagree, Cog, with you that live service games make sense. That absolutely. When you think about, and this is where I do agree with Phil about live service games, the importance of having access to communities, to player bases for those games to thrive. That makes sense. What I'm addressing is this idea that Sony is going to put all their first party games day and date on PC, and that it just makes sense. I'm like, no, it's not easy. It's just making sense.
No, I understand. That's valid.
There's this cannibalization impact that people aren't thinking about. Does selling that game on PC, like how many copies of that game do they need to sell on PC to recoup any lost revenue from the loss of somebody buying a PlayStation 5 console and all the money they're going to spend on that PlayStation 5 console? If the math doesn't add up, they're probably not going to do it.
Yeah, the math got to make sense. It's got to make sense.
Yeah, and I had a conversation with Leviathan Gamer, and he saw my post. I talked about this, about the hardware being a conduit for revenue, and he said, look, he and I don't know where he got his math from. I need to talk to him a bit more, but he said something to the effect that they'd have to sell. What was it, like 5? What was his? I forget the math now.
Yeah, he was saying something like 10 titles to compensate, and he was looking at attach rate. So he was looking at, for, if you look at it, and I haven't pulled this number, but every console generation we generally find out what the purchase attach rate is, or at least for like the first year of ownership. And so I think he was calculating off that, a person who buys a PlayStation 5 plus the number of games that they buy, therefore how many, PC unit sales would you have to make to compensate for that consumer.
Yeah. And I think he was saying like somebody on the PlayStation console would have to buy like 7 games or something to offset the revenue loss of putting games day and date on PC or something. I think that's what
is that taking into account the percentage of people who they believe that are on PC that own a PlayStation?
I'm not sure. I think the way he counts it was that by going day and date, they would need to sell 10 games right on PC to make up for the upfront revenue that they would get from a person buying a PlayStation. I think that's the way he counts it.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at the tweet, but I believe that's the case. So, again, my only point is that conversation is much more nuanced than people are giving it credit.
Yeah,
and but it's interesting. Like we talk about the health of the industry, and again, I want to go back to Matt Piscatello's quote about that. Hey, like consoles aren't going anywhere, but it's a mature market. And I don't think anyone like I'm not surprised that Sony and even Nintendo. I mean, Nintendo's dipping their toes in the mobile space, but I'm not surprised that like Sony's trying different things. And really, this isn't the first time they've been trying things either. I mean, before we went live, Cog, we probably should have gone live at that point. But
no, we was talking.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Gaikai. We remember PlayStation Now.
They were first.
They were first. They had the PlayStation app on Bravia TVs. I believe that's coming back, by the way. I think that I've heard that's actually something they're going to bring back. They had Logic. You mentioned the PlayStation phone today. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they had the PlayStation phone. They've what else did they have?
Forgot about that.
Yeah, they had remember the PlayStation TV subscription service. So this isn't this idea of Sony trying new things to generate new revenue streams or tap to different markets isn't new per se. And the other thing that's interesting that I don't hear people talk about is that they're trying to. There's other markets, and we talked when Matt was talking about the maturity of the console market. If I'm not mistaken, I think he was only commenting on the PC, not PC. I'm sorry, within the U.S. market.
U.S. market, U.S. video game market. Yeah.
Yeah, but we know that Sony, Sony, you've talked a lot about the China Hero Project, and the other initiatives that Sony's doing to try to, generate even more consumers or bring more consumers from other parts of the world into the console space. Whether or not that pans off, we'll see. But there are potential other avenues, I think, for console growth outside the United States. And again, that's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But none of this stuff, again, at least for me, I'm just not buying this narrative that exclusives need to go everywhere for the health of the industry. I just don't buy that because.
Oh, y'all seeing comments from? I'm assuming this is people, pundits making these comments as opposed to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now I'm like, who y'all fighting against?
No.
Okay, I got you.
These, I mean, some of these people are pretty well known influencers.
Okay, I see. What's going on.
But what do you think about that, Kyle? Because you've been gaming a long time, and we've you and I've talked about gaming history. I mean, do you think that this is where this industry needs to go? Because I'm not buying that bill of goods, man. I mean, I think what's happening is we're coming out of this COVID bubble. We talked about this before we went live again.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
There's kind of a course correction.
Yes, that's where I'm at. That's exactly where I'm at. I feel like we're probably in, a 2-year, course correction thing. I had conversations, behind the scene that people were worried about a crash in the industry, as far as where things were trending. And, again, it's kind of what we talked about earlier, which is you see this unprecedented growth during the height and the start of the COVID situation, and companies just start forecasting, okay, this is the new normal, right? Let's double down, let's overinvest, let's hire. And, it's one of those things that now that the dust has settled, and now you see, hey, this wasn't a go. This was not a go. And we have to make, because that's why you see a lot, not all of it, but you're seeing some of that contribute to, a lot of the layoffs and stuff like that. For me right now, to your overall question, exclusives are still part of the identity of a system, in my opinion. I still feel that's still going to be there. Now, what's going to have to change is what I agree with what Sean Layden is saying. He's been a prophet with this as far as the sustainability of these huge, let's be honest, AAA games. And we saw through the Insomniac leaks, right? How much Spider-Man cost to make. And we saw, you start to see the thought process of how they were thinking about shifting. Do we raise prices up on these games? Do we maybe split a Spider-Man 3.5 into, instead of the $70 thing, into like two $50 games?
Make it episodic, yeah.
Almost right. Even with Hellblade, I feel that it was interesting because, with Hellblade 2, we found out, it's not going to be this like 30-hour kind of thing. Like, it's going to be in length comparable potentially to the first one. So we want to say 8 to 10 potentially. I don't know, but definitely not this huge thing. So I think what we're starting to see is that shift. And then we're seeing these other games, like be able to sustain stuff that the hardcore wants. So I think what we're seeing is course correction, and we may be like another year out from it. To your other point, what I thought Matt said was really interesting in reference to, how he doesn't see, as far as PlayStation, Xbox having to go beyond the boxes to find growth. He firmly believes that. He's like, mobile and PC, this was exact tweet, mobile and PC have grown to meet the wants and needs of many video game players. And he says, there's always going to be the enthusiast that wants their box, but it's not going to be the majority of the audience. And that's what some of the, the data is trending. So we're in a little bit of a inflection point, from the normal things that we're used to seeing as console gamers. But to your overall point, I don't think exclusives completely go away. I just think the way these games and these budgets are, they're going to have to shift.
So Carl, do you think that, like, you look at the success of games like Power World and Helldivers 2, that a lot of the publishers, or even just not Nintendo, because Nintendo's budgets aren't like this anyway, right, but like for Xbox and PlayStation, that they start to kind of tamp down some of these AAA budgets to kind of capitalize on potentially a massive return on investment, like the two probably biggest games that have come out this year so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing some indicators from some developers, and asking around and just seeing how things are shifting. And again, you know, the other thing we got to factor in too is, you know, at least on the Xbox side, I can't speak for PlayStation just yet, but as far as the digital factor, right? Hellblade 2 again. It's like, to me, Hellblade 2 represented a lot when we learned, once it got revealed, okay, what's the price point? Digital only, right? No, we're not doing a physical release, right? It's very interesting to me, and I'm curious to see, at least from the Xbox perspective. We know that they have 10, what do you say, like 10 games coming this year from first party. But I'm very curious to see how that production pipeline, like how is that going to be? Does Hellblade 2 represent something new, like this precedent now that they're going to do moving forward? It's interesting to me the way these companies are moving. But I'm starting to see some indicators that these budgets have to come down. Like it's just way out of control right now.
You know what's interesting, Cog, you talk about budgets. Oracle interview Sean Layden, Game Industry Biz, about 2 years ago.
Facts.
He talked about the sustainability. You know what's interesting? When he was talking about the sustainability of AAA development, he said the biggest issue to sustainability with AAA gaming wasn't the increase of team sizes or budgets. It's the fact that the games more or less haven't kept up the retail price to consumers.
Yeah, that's Colin's argument.
And we had Colin on. We had Colin on.
Yep.
Yeah, we had Colin on in September, and we asked Colin, like, "Hey, what do you think about gamers who want cheaper AAA?" He said gamers are going to have to put their money where their mouth is. And I agree with Colin. Like, look, there's that uncomfortable conversation that maybe games are we're gonna have to pay $80, $90. People will be like, "Oh, perhaps just advocating for corporations." No, that's not what I'm saying. I don't want to pay more, but I understand that this phenomena happens with other consumer goods. When the price of manufacturing these goods go up, you have a choice to make. Like, you're going to pay more, or you're going to pay less. And really, and people don't like this. They don't like the term macroeconomics, but we look at when you look at what we paid for video games, Cognito, back in the 90s.
Oh, I was thinking this, bro. You just read my mind. I was literally thinking about, like, we paid $100 something for like Mario something, back in the day, and I mean, them cartridges was real. Like, if you look at the prices then on them flyers, what we was paying in comparison to now, and the price point did not stay stagnant. It was wild what we was doing back then. You literally just read my mind. I was thinking that.
Even if you look at like $50 back in like 1993, whatever, it's like the equivalent of like $100 almost. Like it's, so we're like in game industry, actually GameIndustry.biz. I've evangelized that website on this podcast. I did it before we went live. That they had an article about is gaming really more expensive today than it was 20 years ago when they did the math. Backwards and they adjust for inflation. You'll see that in fact we paid more money for gaming back then. And to what Sean Layden's saying, it's like he goes, it's this weird thing where gamers, they don't want to, they get really like antsy when you start talking about raising the price. He goes, but the problem is that the cost hasn't kept up with the price, or the cost to consumers hasn't kept up with the cost of development. And I believe it was the CEO of Capcom that mentioned that the same thing this summer. We're past that $70 threshold now. And that's a reality. I mean, and that's something that could potentially happen where it's like, hey, you guys want AAA, and we know gamers want AAA.
We love that.
We look at the NPD Circana charts. So I mean, what games are typically charting? Top 10 AAA games. So, but I agree with Colin, by the way. Cognito. When he said that on the show, I was like, yep, I agree.
Yeah, he's been preaching that for a long time. He's been very consistent with that message. And again, if we look at the Insomniac leaks, those ideas were discussed, right? They were talking about, was it flirting with $80 price point potentially. These are all things on the table. The cost of development, all this stuff goes up. And this is one of the rare industries where we kind of stay stagnant. And then there's tremendous pushback on any price. Or then if you don't put a price increase, there's tremendous pushback on monetization, right? So it's like, if you're the publisher, like sometimes it's like, how can you win based on this cost? So you got to get creative. And I think I don't want to say sneaky ways, but you see in things like, all right, we'll get it early for $100 or in conjunction with this season pass, whatever, right? You starting to see them finesse and that's the way, to capitalize on the FOMO of it. So I agree. What you said?
Horse armor. Remember that?
Yeah,
with Oblivion.
With Oblivion, with the $10 joint. Yeah, man. It's I do understand it, and I think there's validity to that point. And again, these are decisions that the industry is going to have to solve. But at the same time, the gamer and the consumer, how does that translate, or does that now translate into, instead of 2 to 3 purchases a year, that maybe there's one, because the game is so expensive. Now you make a bad choice, right? What happens then? So I think, for Microsoft, obviously the appeal, with Game Pass and what they got going there is great. But at the same time, I'm very curious. This is my final point, and tie it in together on the Xbox side, is that I'm very curious when Game Pass, now they've made the commitment that Activision games, new releases, and whatever, go update it. Because I was concerned that they may even have to retract on that, Brad. I'll be honest. I was like, are they going to be in a situation where they either have to change the structure of the tiers, if something's going to happen, or is it going to be a situation where it's like, well, Activision, these are these huge event-like games, and maybe those don't come day and date. So now that we've got that confirmation that they're going to do it, I want to know, again, provided they market correctly and the awareness is there, what does that mean to the casual that knows Call of Duty is in the service, or you market it with the console? What does that do to that Game Pass subscriber? And I'm very curious about that. I want to see how that pans out for them.
Yeah, real quick, I'm going to grab some of these super chats. Prasad with the $2 super chat says, referring back to my first super chat, I think we answered that first super chat about the narrative of exclusives being bad, the focus on Sony. I think we talked about the importance that I think we all agree here that exclusives are still important. We got Spaghetti with the $2 super chat. I think ultimately Xbox has a leadership issue. Cox, should Phil go?
That's what his superiors have to figure out.
Okay.
I don't got that data.
Can I say this real quick? And I'm not advocating that he should or shouldn't go, but Phil has been in his position longer than any other executive of this role in the gaming industry for, like, so far. Like, most of them aren't in it as long as he's been in it.
Right.
So I think some people, may have to come to terms with the fact that eventually he will retire.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it shouldn't shock them if he decides to retire sooner rather than later, considering
Phil looks tired.
The average time that these guys take that role. So
good point. Yeah. Good point. And then obviously we see what the relationship between, as far as Xbox being, which is interesting to me, like more than Windows now. Like that, I was like, wow, just to see that as someone who's followed Microsoft for a long time was kind of interesting. But we got to see how this thing plans out for them. This bet.
Yep. And then I got super chat from King Thrash Gaming with the $5 super chat says, this has been Plan C for years. They took so much risk. They knew if the cloud didn't work and services didn't work, they would always go third party. So thank you for the super chats, everyone. This I don't disagree with you, Cogs. It's kind of an interesting point in gaming in the gaming space. You said this earlier that I don't think we've seen a platform owner go third party.
Yeah,
and still make hardware.
And still make hardware. Yeah, that's the key. That's the differentiator. I've never seen
because when Sega started doing this, they pivoted on
the
hardware.
Game. You see Sonic all over the place. I'm like, damn, they got Sonic.
Still not selling.
Bro,
shout out to Sonic.
Don't be messy now. I'm still sensitive. I'm sensitive, man. I'm a Genesis does kid, man. Look, that's why Xbox was appealing to me, because at the end of the day, I was a refugee. I ain't had no home. They look familiar.
Yes, I was a refugee.
I was a refugee, bro.
You got Crazy Taxi. Hey, remember Jet Set Radio Future?
Crazy Taxi, Shenmue on the joint. The controller looked like the Dreamcast. Remember Windows CE was in it. I was like, oh, this shelter is for me.
Oh man, they doubled down on online.
Online, you know what I'm saying? Like, it looked familiar, bro. But yeah, to your point, all jokes aside, to your point though, this is uncharted territory, man. I don't know. I've never seen this before. Like, you're still committing to hardware. You're still saying you're going to do hardware, but at the same time, you're going to put games over. And I guess the question is the cadence, right? Does the cadence remain a year to 6 years? If there's success, does that shorten is there going to be day and date single player games at some point, right? This is uncharted territory. I don't know what's happening. It is just interesting to watch. I'm just tuning in every day to see how it is. And then to your point, slow and BRAP the messaging, right?
Yeah.
How do they navigate? Like, I don't want to be their marketing team. Like, how do you navigate this with this rabid base? You know,
they're kind of like in a weird place.
It's very strange. I have to admit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one thing that's certain is Amy Hood is definitely rapping on the window, saying that the rent is due, and she will get paid. Starfield charted October 2023. Starfield charted number 1 on NPD. It was the first Xbox game that had charted on NPD since May of 2018.
I want to say that the PC.
Oh, here we go.
Look, I'm just saying the PC.
Hey, you got a screen. You an Xbox.
Hey, hey, the PC community made that happen.
Showed out.
Just like we made Helldivers 2 happen.
Yeah. Oh, you taking that? You claiming that now? All right.
So I'm certain Amy Hood has looked at that and said, Starfield needs to go, or else you need to give me a reason why it doesn't. And this is all the money that can be made.
Will be interesting.
And we already know that Pete Hines threw a big hissy fit on his way out the door about Bethesda not being able to publish their games multi-platform. Called that some mess.
No, that came out. That dirt came out.
Pete was not.
He wasn't supposed to put that out there like that, but we're going to talk about it.
Pistol Pete was not happy.
Yeah, Pete wasn't happy. And to Logic's point, which he's on fire, is that, you know, you also have to worry about creating inequity between studios, right? Because at the end of the day, Xbox Game Studios may have, you know, their internal targets, and as far as what these releases, you know, intend to, you know, to go out to. But if you have certain studios, I mean, in this case, not 100% because Sea of Thieves is part of this, which is, you know, rare. But at the same time, if you look at it and you say, okay, well, damn, well, Bethesda's allowed to do, you know, Tango's allowed to put this everywhere, right? And what you call it, another studio is allowed to put it. What about us? Why are we shackled to only Xbox, and we talking about the user base and the Game Pass numbers in conjunction like that? So that's something else internally. I don't know if it's Matt Booty or whoever is responsible is going to be interesting to navigate. It is again, uncharted territory. I got to see how this thing plays out.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you know, with you, Logic, too, about Amy Hood wanting her money back. Like I said earlier in the show, people were putting out the gifts, the memes, whatever today, saying, "Amy Hood, I want my money." So, yeah, this is, you know, the marketing's funny because we talk about differentiators, right? I think this is why I say exclusives are important, because they're differentiators, right? Consumers go out, they look at platforms, they both do similar things. What are the differentiators between those platforms? What am I getting with this one versus what I'm not getting with that one? And if those games do come in day and date, which I think Slomo suggested, to rival platforms, the only other differentiator that I could see Microsoft leveraging in their favor would be Game Pass.
Game Pass,
hey,
yeah.
You know, you guys could pay $70 over there, but you come here, you get it for quote unquote free.
Right.
Plus you get, you know, I don't forget how many games are in Game Pass right now. Oh, and by the way, you can play those games via cloud on, you know, stream on your mobile app, on your phone, or, you know, a tablet device, your PC,
refrigerator, smart dryer, microwave.
Yeah. You know, you could in your vehicle, you know, yeah. Did you say your smart dryer? Oh man, ever thought about playing Minecraft while you do laundry? We got a solution for you.
Messy. Love
no, I mean seriously, I mean that's the. I think Game Pass is so vital for them right now.
Yeah,
because I like to me, like they have, in my opinion, they have in some sense, I think, and I'm just basing this off of the fan reaction. You know, your co-host Lord Attic has been very vocal about the impact of the brand, and I can't say I necessarily disagree with him, because I've also seen that sentiment elsewhere. But people are like, well, wait a minute, like this kind of damaged the brand. Like, why do people really need an Xbox then? Why if all these other games are going to be coming out and then anytime they release a new game or they announce a new game, the question is always going to be, well, is that game also going to go to PlayStation or
right?
Nintendo?
It never stops now. Yeah, that's good.
It never stops. Yeah, and so to your point, the messaging is going to be interesting how they handle this. But I think the biggest differentiator they have right now, and hopefully they double down if this is what happens, if they start bringing more stuff to other consoles, and if it goes day and date, which I still don't think it's going to happen, but I could be wrong. I say day and date on rival platforms like the Switch and PlayStation, but that's like the crown jewel for them now. I think is Game Pass.
No, I think so.
They got to market that.
They have to. That's my frustration. It's like you've got to be singing this thing from the rooftops. It amazes me how many casual people probably still do not know about Game Pass. And I think that's it. And it's like, okay, you get it here. Your priority, you get it first. You play in that ecosystem. That's going to be the challenge. They have their communication on that and the way they market. Like, in my opinion, and I've said this since the beginning of the ABK acquisition, is that like I need to see like that Series S and that Series X, with the actual, Call of Duty, marketing. Like remember back in the day, you get the pack in, so to speak. Not that they're going to pack Call of Duty in, but to let the casual know this is the home of it, right? And that when you have a huge time, because I think they did it with Minecraft at some point, I believe. They're saying like when you have these huge franchises under your jurisdiction, it's imperative for you to kind of get that messaging out. So I'm curious on that. And to your point, I think that for them is the differentiator, that they have the software pipeline now, right? They have the 10 games coming this year. We know about a lot of the roadmap. They still got a lot of things they want to announce, and that's great. And it's just a matter of, okay, you're willing, being part of it. Like those 5 tenets they put out on that Xbox Live post, which is like, what it means to be on Xbox. So you're going to get them day and date. They're going to be in Game Pass, that kind of thing, forward, backward compatibility, crossplay, all that other stuff. So it's going to be on them now. And it's going to be critical because I think ultimately the last thing I'll say is this: it's all about the games, bro. Like Slow Mo said from the beginning, it's all about these games. Got to be good, and to me, there's going to be, I don't say an indictment, but that class of 2018. You know what I'm saying? Like the Playgrounds, the Compulsions, all the ones that they acquired, right? If they could deliver on the promise and these games are quality games, then everybody forgets, because all people care about is being in the conversation of a zeitgeist of a great game. That's it. If the games are good, that's what's going to drive it. That's the key for me. And I will give them this. I know we're going in on them, but the reason why I guess a lot of people felt frustrated because they like, yo, bro, you right at the precipice. You looking like you about to, you know what I'm saying? You about to let off. And then this. Right. So the only logical thing I can come up with is that the math ain't mathing, and you got to do it. Yeah, that's how I internalize it. So
I don't disagree.
It's all about the games, bro.
It's like I said earlier today. Amy Hood, she was like, Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan. Time's up, Admiral.
Somebody came in there. I'm with you. Like someone came in that building and said, "All right, this is where we at. This is where y'all said we is gonna be at, but this is where we actually at." And now, paid up, right? Time's up. Here we go. What you gonna do? Give me the list at 5:00. What's going? Send me the list that the immediate, who's going in April. We need to get these things out there because we need this ROI. Goddamn it! And I think that's what's going on. If I had to be honest, because if based on what I know about in the building, I will say this. The 3 that were on that business update, to me, were very symbolic. You had Phil, you had Sarah, and you had Matt Booty. From what I know, those are the ones that would, in my opinion, fight the hardest for the vision to try to go through, the original vision, before this pivot, right? So, in my opinion, having them out there, and I don't know who constructed the list, but maybe it's to try to buy a little time, but they had to give some ROI back. That's a battle they did lose, but it is interesting to me that when the rumors were very extreme, Gears, Starfield, all the stuff, people were basically saying it's whole slate in the beginning. There's a thought process that they wanted to push back a little bit to, up top to say, hey, we can do this, but look at the reaction we're getting. look at what's happening. Maybe we do it, but we're not as aggressive, and maybe that's the compromise for right now. We wait, we see how much this return on these games on these other platforms, and then we play it again. So, and I thought it was interesting, BRAP, that they gave the numbers for Game Pass being as soft as they were. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's like, let's be honest, that ain't, like Logic said it earlier, like we know that consists of Game Pass, games with gold day and date, which got transformed in the core, right? So part of me is like, well, that's not.
Hey, Cog, real quick.
Yeah.
Do you know how many of the Game Pass core, like the Xbox Live converted to Game Pass core? Do you know how many?
Not off top.
Millions.
Yeah, not off top. I think that information came across, but I don't want to quote it because it could be incorrect. So
yeah, they said it's basically 12 million, so it was like 11.75. So before they did the flip, they publicly stated that the number of people that they needed to transition was about 11.75 million.
Right.
So are we saying that, like, allegedly that Game Pass subscribers actually were slightly down, or currently like out of what is not the core, the people who are actually getting these games day and date that are first party is actually less than the 25 million that it was over a year ago when they first reported that?
I've called it flat just because there's a little bit of wiggle room right there. So it was 11.75 million people that they needed to transition. That doesn't account for, there may have been some people who just said, yeah, F that, I'm not flipping, like I'm just out, So there's that. Another thing, I think the thing that's a significant number that I had a figure around, but then I've had to back off of it, and now it's even squishier. So if I'm not mistaken, in the EU, there was a law that came out, I think in 2022, that basically required, and this is the ongoing trend of laws that the EU puts down that targets the big six tech companies. There was a law that was put down that basically said, hey, when you are running a subscription service, you American tech companies, you guys have telemetry on people's consumption of that service. You cannot just let somebody sign up for a subscription in perpetuity when you are the ones who know that they're not using it. So I'm pretty sure there was a point where, so that law requires them to send notifications, and then also requires them to actually disenroll them. So I believe that accounted for a certain loss of numbers, and I'm pretty sure that was in an earnings report at some point, because everyone had to do it. PlayStation had to do it, Xbox had to do it, Spotify had to do it, blah, blah, blah. So that mixture of numbers is like, I'm not necessarily willing to go out right with that loss of precision, right, and say that they slid backwards. And I think it's even-handed to just say that growth was flat.
Okay, that's fine. I just just looking at that face value. It's disappointing regardless, because it's like basically you remained, either you were growing some and then losing some, but essentially you remained flat for over a year since the last time you reported, and that's definitely not where they wanted themselves to be with Game Pass, and going into the future. We know what their goals were, and they're definitely not really hitting that at this time. So it's what it is. Hopefully, the more like them actually hitting the cadence of games that they've always intended on hitting reverses that.
As opposed to 2022, like when they didn't, it was just with Starfield and Redfall at that time, both got delayed out, right? They've been uneven, if you notice it. Like the start of the launch, me and Brad, we've talked about it. Remember, no Halo, no compelling software initially at the start of the generation, which was damaging. You had a solid 2021, with was it Forza, Microsoft Flight Sim, Halo Infinite, I believe. There's one more game I can't remember at the time, but it was Psychonauts 2, I believe. Right, fine. And then you have 2022, which was a disaster, absolute disaster. I think it just ended up being grounded in Pendament, which guess where they are now. And then 2023, which is kind of the bounce back, which is obviously you have the Hi-Fi Rush, you have the Starfield, you have the Forza. You have Redfall there, but it's the inconsistency with a service, and that demands content. So I think it ultimately comes back to what you said at the very beginning, Slow Mo, when you were talking about games, bro. You got to put compelling reasons for people to stay in this service or want to subscribe to this service. And I think the hope is, because of what we know with this lineup from this year and beyond, it looks bright. So it's just a matter of the execution, and now these games, got to review well.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great point. All right, gentlemen. I do want to wrap up the show. It's getting close to midnight here on the East Coast, and want to give a big shout out to everyone in the live chat. Please do me a favor, hit that like button if you haven't done so. If you're new, subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. If you want to see more of Hollywood Hogan, the NWO, you found the right place. I'm joking. I'm not. The NWO T-shirt is off.
Black History Month. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Gotta let you put the guns down this month. We promote no violence this month, rap. Come on now.
But I want to give a big shout out to our guest this evening, Lord Cognito. Cog, thank you so much. Hey, we can't wait 2 years to have you back on. Man.
I know. My bad. Yeah. That's on me.
No, I understand. No,
yeah, it's because what it is with y'all live is usually like I'm still like wrapping up Duke and doing ads and stuff and doing stuff. So it was just a schedule thing. But yeah, man, I'll try to make it not 2 years. Shout out to Game Logic, the first time interacting with you, brother. Pleasure. And Slow, the homie, Mr. Washington Redskins, intolerable fan who wants to stop just joking. I like the persona you played in that. That was dope. Yeah, we laughing. Salute to the chat, everybody that pulled up. And look, man, I love stuff like this. That's why I like when we have these conversations about, because we kind of like to have some nuance, right? Not talking absolutes, and even when we disagree, just agree to disagree, but be respectful. That's the only thing I'm asking you. Just be respectful. We ain't got to call each other out our names. We ain't got to go extra. We can just just disagree. That's the only thing I want to promote. But I know I'm going to say things people don't agree with, but as long as we respect each other, I'm good. And shout out to everybody. This was fun, man. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, no. It was, like I said, it's great points, and like I said, we definitely have to have you back on again. And I know the scheduling on Wednesdays is challenging for you because defining Duke and everything. But we do BRAP rants on the weekends. So weekend. And you've been part of a couple weekend rants.
I've been part of a couple of times.
Yeah. So we'll get you back on for like a weekend rant or something. I'm still working on one of your other co-hosts.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm ever going to get him on.
we get him to come outside. We're going to get him to come outside. He acting a little too Hollywood, but we're going to get him to come outside.
He's like, I'm always working, I'm like,
nah, he is. Boy, work hard, but we're going to stop. I'm working on that. I got you, bro. I got you.
Yeah, but no, Cock, thank you again. It's always a pleasure. I always enjoy the conversation with you. It's funny, like we do talk offline. We don't always do. It's funny, our conversation, we don't always agree. And to your point, like, it's okay to disagree. But like I said, we definitely need to get you back on again sooner than later. It can't be 2 years. That's just way too long.
Yeah,
way too
long. That's a fact.
Yeah, but Cog, if you want to let everyone know they can find you, plug the content, the shows that you're a part of.
No doubt. Again, thank you for letting me join the realm of the Basement Radio Arcade. It's been a minute, and Lord Cognito on Twitter. Every Sunday is the Lord's Day, 1 p.m. Eastern, with 3 and my brothers. Talking games, talking what's going on in the industry, just shooting it. And then obviously, if you want a little bit more of a nuanced Xbox conversation, specifically, shout out to my brother, Mr. Matty Plays with Defining Duke, Last Stand Media. We usually record on Wednesdays, and then I'll go up on Thursdays on the Patreon, and usually the free feeds by Sunday. And if I know our Slow-Mo's here, he hating, he ready to stomp on my Destiny grave. But if you still like that game,
hey, look, man, you know that meme of the black dude that showed up to the funeral, and he said, I just showed up to make sure he was dead. Look, man, I got the suit on. It's not on. It's in the closet. I'm ready to go. Get my condolences too.
Oh man, you've been waiting for this day. You've been waiting.
Oh man!
All my division slander caught up to me, huh?
Oh yeah, look, I'm still getting content. I know I'm gonna keep getting content.
Listen,
until Division 3 come out, which
Hiroki Toki gonna make this right. We're gonna turn this around.
You know, it's definitely gonna be a Division 3. Is there gonna be a Destiny 3?
I can't even talk. You got me. Right now. I'm looking spooky. to the final shape. I can't talk right now. I'm on defense. But like I said, if you want to hear about that, shout out to my man Ebonton. Shout out to Ty Got Travis for IGN. We usually do a Destiny podcast.
Last Word is a great show. Like,
you were on it during the vision. That was dope. Love that.
All right, and then a big shout out to Abontis, by the way.
Yeah, salute. Send him some love, yo. Rest in peace. He lost one of his the Iron Wolves. He's got lost a dog, one of his first ones.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they had to take him down. Yeah, so he's going through it right now. So I'll see if there's a show tomorrow, but we'll see. Because I said, bro, take as much time as you need. Because when I went and visited him, he's got like 2 or 3 huskies, and she was like the first. Yeah, that's horrible dog.
That hurts, yeah. Yeah, well, look, and then big shout out to Mr. Matty Plays. Defining Duke, love the name of the show because of the controller.
Yeah, old school.
Yeah, so, but Gok, thank you again, and want to go to Bubba with his face painted green, also known as Slow Mo Backslap Slow Mo. You have a show tomorrow.
I sure do.
Your compadre though is MIA. He won't return phone calls, man. Is he okay?
He's fine. He just, look, this is typical Forte. I'll send Forte. I'll call Forte. I'll send him a text message.
Yeah.
Days will go by, and then he'll hit me up like, "Hey, what's up, man? What's going on?" Like nothing happened. Like he didn't. No, I ask him questions.
He does the same thing to me. Yeah.
Nothing. And I'm just like, bro, I sent you a question like 2 days ago. I mean, even though he got the evidence on his phone that I did that, he was like, "No, you didn't." I'm like, "What? Yes, I did." And I'm like, "Look at your phone." "No, you didn't. No, you didn't." "All right, yeah, you did." And it's just like, dude, come on, man. He's like a little kid with his cell phone. Just like he just looking at the wrong stuff and that. I said that wrong. Not really looking at the wrong stuff, but just not paying attention to what anybody's saying. So, just typical.
Yeah. Big shout out to his brother K-Live, by the way.
Oh yeah, shout out to him. We're gonna have a show tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as usual. It'll start on my channel, end on the DPS podcast channel, as we have been doing the past few weeks. It's been pretty cool, driving engagement to the DPS channel. Come through if you guys want to go, join the conversation. We appreciate it. And as you said, it's been 2 years since COG has been. I feel like it's been even longer since COG has been on DPS, man. I feel like
that's a fact.
It's both of y'all podcasts on the days our podcast. It kills me because
Rob does Wednesday, and then I'm what the problem is I podcast too damn much. But then Thursday I do last word, and then when we're ending, I believe you guys are either just because you do it 8 or 9. What time? I'm forgetting now. Yeah, so it's like I'm just now coming out of last word at 9 because he always ends around 9:15. So that's what it is. So it's like, damn it. That's why I haven't seen y'all in a minute.
Yeah. We gotta figure it out.
We gotta figure it out. Facts.
Yeah, we'll definitely check out DPS tomorrow night. Sure, it's gonna be very entertaining. You guys, you and Forte make me laugh, man. It's always a good show. But Game Logic, I don't know if you want to be found. If you do, let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, first of all, play Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden, support your developers.
Oh, how is that, by the way?
Not too bad. Yeah, I'm liking it. It's not, I mean, I wouldn't put it like way up high in terms of combat, but it's don't nod. Like you do take it with a grain of salt. But I like the story. The story's got a good bit to it. It's a nice setup. It's a good premise too. Interesting.
I respect Don't Nod because they do like to try new things. I can never knock a developer for trying to be innovative and different. And a lot of people only know them for the Telltale style Life is Strange games, but they did Remember Me before that. They did Vampire or Vampire, however you want to pronounce it. And I think those games were interesting, but not quite for me. But I respect the fact that they like it's kind of how I feel about Arcane, although I think Arcane's got a much better track record. But like, I'm not big on Arcane games, but I respect their way of going about things and how they go about it and the level of quality they put into it. And I think the same for Don't Nod. It's different for them, and I like that they keep trying that.
Facts. Hollywood, while you guys are all focused on putting out schlock, you need to get Don't Nod a movie deal.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, is that a Madam Web reference?
No, just
at least better than that. I mean, anything is better than that. The four of us together can write a script. I'll get Logic on the camera. We'll get Cog on the lighting. Enrique will do the acting, and I'll direct. And we could do a short movie that's better than Madam Web. I mean, come on, that movie is.
Did you see it?
Dumpster juice. I wouldn't. They couldn't pay me to watch that. I wouldn't watch that with your eyes. Okay, I wouldn't use your eyes to watch that movie.
How do you know it's dumpster juice if you haven't watched it?
I looked at the trailer and knew immediately this is not it. Like this. And as a comic book fan, I'm offended.
What do you think about Kate Blanchett in Borderlands?
You already know the answer to that, man. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? You don't want me to say. You don't want me to say in the DM on the air. You don't want me to say that. You don't want me to say that.
No. We don't want to. We don't want to be demonetized. Yeah, we don't want that. You're absolutely right.
Kate Blanchett is a wonderful actress who is playing a character that is half her age, and I wonder why that is.
Ageism. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. It's giving that meme with the I forgot that guy's name, but the guy from Reservoir Dogs when he's trying to pretend to be a young kid. He's all like he's showing up in a school and everything, trying to use the current slang, and it ain't working.
Sal Buscemi.
Yeah, that's Kate Blanchett in Borderlands.
All right, let's go back to Logic. Go ahead, Logic. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, if you guys want to catch up with me, you can catch me on the Enough to Keep Going podcast on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on Sunday nights at 8:45 p.m. Eastern or thereabouts. And then you can catch me here. I'm going to try, no promises, but I'm going to try to take the little thing I've been doing called Talking About Games and start doing that on Tuesday nights. So if I'm able to line that up, it might be kind of nice. You kind of might have a 3-night sequence of the Truth Network with Talking About Games on Tuesday, BRAP on Wednesday, and then DPS on Thursday. But my work schedule is shifting around, so we'll see if we can pull that off.
Yeah, always great content as well, Logic. And look, since Cog, you were preaching peace.
Yes.
I just want to say, everyone, have a great evening. Love peace in video games.
Yes.
And have fun playing video games, because that's what it's all about. But yeah, no, yeah, thank you to our guests this evening. Thank you again to everyone in the live chat for hanging out with us this evening. Please hit that like button if you're new. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. I may do another BRAP rant on Saturday, but I'll keep everyone posted. Give me a follow on Twitter at BRAP_podcast. Until next time, thank you.